you haven't had too wet a day. So we do have some apologies and substitutions. So we have Councillor Ward, who's given, Vice Chair has given his apologies, and we have Councillor Nicholson in his place. We have Councillor Quirk, who's given apologies, and we have Councillor Blake in his place. And we have Councillor Fuller, who's given us apologies, and we have Councillor Jeffries in his place. So welcome, everybody. And I think that's all the apologies and the substitutions. So move on to the minutes, pages 5 to 10. Are we happy? Is there a record? Have for me to sign those minutes off, everybody? Like to indicate in affirmative in the usual way? Yeah, all in favour? Yep, thank you. I'll sign those. Right, moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. Any members have interest they wish like to declare on the matters on the agenda? None, thank you. Public question time. So we have had one written question from Mr. Jock Rafferty, but I do understand, I've just been informed that Mr. Rafferty isn't able to come to the meeting. I'm happy to read out the question if you'd like to. Is there anyone in the public gallery like to hear the question? I recognise someone being from Cow, so maybe I'll do that anyway, and then we'll sort this. We'll obviously get this to Mr. Rafferty. So, from Jock Rafferty to the chair of this committee. Given the recurring mechanical failures of the current vessel, will the committee commit to ensuring that the procurement specification for Floating Bridge 7 includes a contractually binding 10-year operational reliability guarantee and a requirement for zero emission or hybrid electric propulsion? And how will the council involve local maritime engineering expertise in the design process to ensure the vessel is fit for Medina's specific tidal conditions? And the response, and thank you for officers for preparing this, so we can give a full answer to Mr. Rafferty. In line with the decision from Environment, Transport and Infrastructure Committee on the 16th of October 2025, a working group has been established with the aim of further exploring market interest and development of a replacement vessel. The working group included Isle of Wight Council members, officers, representatives from East Cowes Town Councils and Cowes Town Council, plus Captain John Kidd to discuss specification outputs. Also, in response to an advert published on the council's vacancies page, two voluntary independent experts with marine knowledge have been engaged to the working group, and the working group met yesterday. To assist with obtaining market interest through an upcoming preliminary market engagement exercise, a tender process has been carried out to appoint a maritime technical advisor with proven experience in shipbuilding design, ideally in ferry or passenger vessel design, capable of demonstrating how their experience would be able to be relatable to the council's requirement. 3 bids which have been evaluated at the time of producing this written response. 3 bids being received at the time of producing this written response being evaluated. I think we're having an update later on in the meeting, aren't we, regarding those evaluations. The preliminary market engagement exercise will commence in February, seeking insight from the market, and will explore with potential interest parties considerations related to warranties and guarantees, carbon footprint, and alternatives around hybrid electric and other means of alternative propulsion. So we're still very much in the as I call it, the top of the funnel, the art of the possible. And then as we get the market response, then we'll be able to see what actually is possible, and these output specifications, how that they'll be met. That's actually critical importance. The findings of the preliminary market engagement work is due to be reported back to this committee in March 2026. The procurement for the marine advisor, the conducting of the preliminary market engagement exercise, and any subsequent procurement for a designer and builder of any new vessel is being conducted in line with the public sector procurement legislation. And then just for context, because they did talk about mechanical failures, it should be noted that the floating bridge has operated over 95% reliability for 19 hours per day, 7 days per week operation for the last 2 years, following the essential repairs made to the vessel. That will be going off to Mr. Rafferty. So now we're going to move on to our decisions. We have one decision this evening, and that's the Local Transport Plan 4, the outcome of the consultation and the final document. Mr. Chandler, are you happy to take over from this point?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee. Just wanted to sort of put this in front of the committee again, because really we're in the final. Oh, sorry.
So we didn't actually give an opportunity to the members of the public in the gallery to ask questions. We didn't give opportunities to members of the public to ask questions.
You know, I do apologise. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Councillor Blake. I haven't got my vice chair, you see, so I'm a bit late. So thank you for that. Yes, we have a member of the public in the gallery. Would you like to come forward, state your name, where you're from, and your question, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. Richard Hollis from Cowes. My question is twofold. First of all, in the last time the floating bridge was purchased, so to speak, or it was a requirement of the 2013 Local Government Association, to which this council is aligned, to have an overseeing board, which they failed to do, to actually put some different thought into the whole purchasing, well, not the purchasing, but the design, etc., of the whole operation of purchasing a floating bridge. Can I take it that this overseeing board is what you've just described? That is the first part of the question. The second is that if you go to Holland, you will see numerous places where they have large bridges that go up and down and raise. And have we actually looked seriously at having a simple twin bridge in Cowes so that it would remain open, allowing free passage, and then only close and come down when vehicles wish to cross, rather similar to the timings of the existing floating bridge? Has it actually been considered?
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. So just to say, yes, the working group that I described is basically that overseeing board. That's we have some technical experts on that as well. And where we are right now, as I said earlier, we're not actually looking at specific designs and such and solutions, rather than going to the market and asking what solutions they come up with. The committee was clear, though, in October that it would be a vessel. I do believe that it has been explored several times before. For instance, Portsmouth University looked at it about having a bridge. I mean, I can ask our officers if they've got any more information, but I believe that a bridge has been discounted as being unfeasible. So that's just my knowledge from that. But the committee, but in October, was clear that it would be a vessel. What that vessel looks like, how it's run, whatever, that is still open for the market to come back to us. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll just defer to officers. Mr. Owens will pick up on the question about the bridge. Thank you.
Yeah, the first exercise following the Cabinet report in 2023 was to do a full options appraisal using Treasury Green Book practice, and that was where the bridge option was discounted, A, for practicality, but B, for cost. The cost of a bridge option was costed at least 25, 30 or even 50 million pounds, which was thought to be unaffordable given the alternatives.
Did you have a supplementary, Mr. Hollis? Thank you very much for coming. Apologies again for missing out. Thank you to my Vice Chair, Councillor Blake, for helping me out there. Back to the local transport plan. So, Mr. Chandler, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. As I'm sure all of you recall, back in July last year, presented the local transport plan in its draft form to the committee to seek approval to take it through to consultation. We have undertaken that. That was undertaken throughout autumn up to the end of November. And what we now presented in front of you is the more finished version. There's a couple of small tweaks to be made in the interim, but otherwise the content is there. Just wanted to confirm that we took on board all of the feedback that was provided last time. We have ensured that the data being used was up to date. We used, and that is referenced in the main document as well. And likewise, we moved the priorities around slightly, given that the original draft was put together in 2022 when the impacts of the pandemic and climate change was at the front of our priorities. That's now shifted with the climate impact still set out within the document, but COVID-19, where travel arrangements have pretty much returned back to where they were pre-pandemic, except for commuters. That's less of a priority, but economic development and growth is a priority. So therefore that's taken a more advanced priority within the document. We had over 450 representations, responses to the consultation. Majority of those were online, but obviously we went out and about into the community. We undertook 7 engagement events in person across the island, tried to get as much coverage as possible. And thank you for those who participated in that and came and met with us. We've taken on board all of that feedback that's come in. The details of which will follow in due course. We've got the main heading points within here, but the insights document will be attached to the final version that is presented to full council and obviously to PFR as well in due course. But we're very much going to be seeing how that relates back into this final draft. But I really just want to thank again the community and everyone who provided feedback during that consultation. It was really helpful. Whilst a number of the issues were very granular by nature, looking at particular issues in particular locations, and this is very much the overarching strategy, we will be taking those into account when we develop the implementation plan, which comes next, which really gets down to our 15-year lifetime, broken down into 5-year chunks about what we're doing over the next 5 years, 10 and 15, to get to where we can see ourselves being in 15 years' time. But I just wanted to present this opportunity and seek approval of the committee to take it forward to full council.
Very much, Mr. Chandler. Now, I know the committee is very interested in this document, and there'll be some comments coming forward. Perhaps you can help answer any queries we've got. So, who wants to kick off? Don't be shy. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I mean, it's a comprehensive document, and you have done an excellent consultation exercise and pulled in an enormous amount of thought from the public generally. And I can see, having seen the sort of various drafts, that you've gone through it again and again. One of the things that does concern me, and it's not just within my area, it does cover a number of areas, is that specific key transport links aren't always dealt with in a proper strategic fashion. And I've got a suggestion for you in a minute. But I mean, if we deal with the military road, and you've all heard me talk about it before, it's seen as a strategically important route. The previous leader, the current leader of the council has on at least 2 occasions agreed on the basis of the council that it is a critical link. But I'm not sure that we see a sort of longer term strategic position at the moment.
Now, it's not for this type of document to actually say what that might be. That has been explored, I know, previously internally by Island Roads and obviously by highways, and that obviously is a continuing issue. But the fact is that we should include it as part of specifically contextualized issue. So I was going to suggest that, and it's a very simple thing, that you introduce a statement basically saying, introducing a dedicated military road brackets A3055, of course, resilience and retention framework, and that's within section I5, simply so that we have recognised the importance of it. Because when you actually look through a lot of the background documentation, they fail to recognise some of the issues that are seen there, but not dealt with. Specifically, I'm thinking of the economics of the island. It's seen as a tourism route, it's seen as a tourism attraction, but it is actually a critical route for our businesses. I was talking to one business with over 30 people. If the military road collapses into the sea, which it's close enough to do at some stage soon, unfortunately, but if it did go, that business would go as well. So when I look around, I sort of see the military road issue in totality. And as I said, there is a suggestion there to perhaps add to the enormous amount of work that you've already done. Thank you, Chair.
I've got Councillor Jarman, then Councillor Blake.
Or shall I provide?
Oh,
a
yes,
quick
yes, do
response to that?
respond.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. It was in respect to military road, as I say, we don't particularly focus on any one scheme within the main strategy document over another, because obviously we're facing a number of significant issues on the network in regards to resilience and the impacts of climate change, and heavier rainfall, greater levels of erosion and so forth, both inland and coastal. So it is the intention that AU supplementary documents will be produced, which will look at those particular issues. What the next one will be the implementation plan, which will set out under all these headings, including climate change and resilience and network, what we're going to do around that. One of the key items on that will be to look at the A3055 and the A3056 and in other areas as well, where there is risk of erosion on the network. In particular, I'm thinking what happens in the event of Leeson Road, what happens in the event of Military Road, all of those optioneering routes forwards got to be taken. This is where we will be using the implementation plan to go to the combined authority or to government departments to make the case for additional funding. But we do understand the impacts that the severance of these key routes would have on local economy, businesses, as well as individual residents as well. So we totally appreciate that, and plans are in train for that very purpose. I should also mention that the intention is to look at key routes as a part of the combined authority, because they will have responsibility over these key routes, which, whilst I can't be certain that the A305 in its total length will be a part of that, it certainly will be identified in part as one of the main routes around the island. So that's something that's going to be developed in further, but obviously that will be something to be taken through the combined authority to provide funding specifically through an agreed key route network.
Councillor Stewart, does that satisfy your query?
I understand and accept the approach which is taken. I can, from coming from a policy background myself, I can see where it's coming from. The real issue I face is that the military road is there at the moment. If we wait for a mayoral authority, they won't be elected till 2028. The military road, certainly in one particular part, may not last that long. And the moment that it goes, we have a entirely different issue. And the approach to diversions is on roads which just will not work at this moment. I have a lot of residents who keep raising it with me. I have been talking about it now. I've been here for some 3 years. I've been talking about it ever since I got here. We don't seem to be getting the priority approach that we should have on this. And I entirely understand that we have to go through this step by step. But unless we actually put it forward and we have the case to go to the department through MPs, for example, then it is unlikely that central government will ever support it. There are reasons why central government might support it, and I can think of those, but we won't go into that at this time. We've got plenty of other things to talk about. But the fact is that unless we as a council put in specific references to specific things, we will struggle to get through to the leadership of those departments and to be able to persuade them to accept what ministers might say as well.
Yeah, just in response to that follow-up, I can confirm that as a part of the discussions with in preparation for the combined authorities coming together, we're looking at a longer term pipeline of schemes, and some of those not longer term. Some of those will have to be enacted sooner rather than later in the events like you've suggested, Councillor Stewart, and that does include recognition of the potential need for a corrected diversion, should we say, or consideration of what the arrangements will need to be for Military Road. So I can assure you that that is very much been taken forward. A lot of work has already been done at looking at that, and we use that as a basis to go, we need some funding here. And whilst we know that the economics have not always supported our specific request on that, but it is something that we can say build on in respect to the diversion route.
Councillor Blake in now, because I think he may have a almost an addition to this this route we've just been talking about.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to echo what Councillor Stewart ended his speech on. That right now this isn't worth the paper it's written on, because it's not a plan. It's not even an aspiration. It bleats on about EVs and things like that, rather than actually saying, even if money was no object, what would we want? And Councillor James Evans, you mentioned earlier about a bridge across Medina being costed too much. Well, is it in there? Because we're told this mayoral authority is going to come with unlimited pots of money. They might even turn around and go, yeah, we'll give you a bridge. If we haven't vocalised that we want a bridge, we'll never get one. Right now, our transport infrastructure, and mainly our highways, is worse than fragile. You've got, for instance, a road closure up at up top end of Newport here. That is grinding the whole island to a halt, because that is the only way to get from the east side of the island to the west side of the island, or west side of the island to east side of the island. It is in there. But that was grinding the whole Newport to a halt, because the traffic was backing up down the high street, because it couldn't get around Coppins Bridge, because it couldn't get round past St George's Roundabout, because it couldn't get up round past Morrison's, and couldn't get back round up round Trafalgar Road. It was grinding the island. It was all backing up through Fairley Road, all backing up through Long Lane, backing up down past New Close Cricket Ground, because it's the only road in the absence of Undercliff Drive being closed. Now, this is a strategic road. It's an A road. It's been closed since the 14th of February 2014. There's nothing about that in there. How are we going to reopen an A road that needs to be opened? Not in there. Things like that need to be in there. If it's a transport plan, it doesn't matter about cost savings or what would you do if to correct the transport situation on the island? This doesn't address that. It tells us about demographics and a whole host of other things. It doesn't actually say this is what we've got to do. And I say it doesn't matter what limitations you think you have or have not got. If you put together a comprehensive plan, you never know what might come up. An opportunity might come up to say, right, we've got some money to do some severe infrastructure on the island, and we've got to have a list of costed, ready to go plans to say, this is what we want and do it. Not, oh, wait a second, we'll spend the next 3 years debating about where we want the bridge, how we want it to look, what frequency we want it. It's just, it's all backward. So I can't vote in favour of this. The argument that we need a transport plan, we're statutorily obliged to have a transport plan, for me isn't a good enough reason to pass this, because it isn't what it says on the tin.
Thank you, councillor Blake. Mr. Chandler, are these shovel-ready schemes that you say you're getting ready for the combined authority? When will they be, so I guess they're in draft form, when will they be able to be shared with the committee at least, so we can have some comfort that we actually have a plan to address some, our transport issues?
Yeah, I think it's the intention to provide a forward plan of what we're intending to do in the short term, in next year or so, as well as the slightly longer term up to the next 5 years in due course. Some of that will be through the implementation plan. Some of that will be actually our capital programme, which is currently being worked up on in detail at the moment, dealing with particular issues like at Wroxall with the collapse of that retaining bank there and so forth, and also other issues such as the junction of Lake Fairway and Lake Hill at the moment. So there are a number of schemes that are already in underway, which I'm sure that colleagues and myself are happy to provide details of. When we next meet, we can start to go through the bones of that. But obviously it will be working with colleagues at Island Roads and so forth to come up with a granularity to say, when's it going to happen? My response back to Councillor Blake in regards to what this document does, there is a single and sole policy on its own within the document for asset management and network resilience. It sits as a policy unto itself in which will be measured throughout the lifetime of this document. And it is very much that issue that we're talking around now, asset management and climate change network resilience, because the increased levels of rainfall, the issues we're having with dry summers, hot summers, more rain during the autumn, warmer winters with less frost and dry conditions. We've gone away from the anti-cyclonic weather patterns that we have had historically to something with a higher level of rainfall. It is something that we've got to actually face and deal with. So therefore, we're reporting against it. When the implementation plan comes out, it will talk about individual locations. It will focus on those schemes that need not just the money that we can provide, not just the money that the combined authority can provide, but actually something that we might need to go directly to government and say, and we would certainly need the combined authority support with that, because they become the transport authority to say, this is what we need to maintain the highways in the island. And in the absence of Leeson Road, Military Road, what does it look like if those links get severed and therefore the infrastructure has to be rebalanced to make that work? Completely agree with the issue, like you said, at Newport High Street this morning, not this morning, in the last week or so, because I live within that area and I can assure you I face the issues as much as anything else. Getting from Node Hill took 20 minutes where normally it would take 2. But we do have proposals, potential proposals, won't go into detail of them, to alleviate the pressure on the centre of Newport and others as well. And again, this will feature in the longer term implementation plan. It is just obviously getting everything lined up, the money, because the finances do have to stack up. If we're given any credibility by government departments or potential financiers, we've got to come up with a credible scheme that actually sets out the true cost and how we're going to finance it one way or another. If we start talking about things which we're very unlikely, due to the economics, to get the support from funding bodies, we can put them in here, but they just won't mean anything. We really want this document to mean that it's going to get something done. So this goes hand in hand with the implementation plan, which will come as part of the next phase. And of course, we will put within revisions to reference specific locations. And within that asset management and climate change resilience section, we can certainly cite the A3055 and the A3056, and even the A3054 as the main key network routes that all require elements of network resilience built into them.
Mr. Rowland.
Yeah, I'll just go a bit further from what Stuart was just saying, Mr. Chandler, in response to Councillor Stewart and Councillor Blake, hopefully, that the A3055 and the A3056, we want to make sure that they are key routes within the mayoral authority, because the key routes within the mayoral authority are the ones that attract the most funding. So I think there's an argument that Councillor Stewart has made that will be a bit more explicit in that about the A3056 and the A3055, and we will put in retention and resilience as being our aspiration.
Thank you. And can I just pick up on Councillor Blake, you talked about it being a statutory, requirement, and that you're not going to support this statutory requirement. I think I find that quite troublesome, because it's our duty upon us, and we have a duty when we sign as councillors to carry out our duties with the support of officers. But I just wondered if anyone on officers can actually explain a little bit more about the about this duty. I think it goes from under legal to on page 15, the last paragraph there. This explains. This might help just everyone to understand why we're doing this.
As the current local transport authority, one of the statutory obligations on the Isle of Wight Council is to have and maintain an up-to-date local transport plan. The issue with our 2011 plan is that we can't, on hand on heart, say it's up to date and it represents what's going on now. With the work we did through the consultation, and obviously taking into account national and local policy, we have got as close as we can to a LTP that represents and it is up to date and represents what we need for the island. The implementation plan will take it the next step and get that granular detail, but it's a statutory requirement we have this. Once the combined authority is the local transport authority, they take on that responsibility. They will produce their own transport plan for the combined area. It might be a light document which they then refer to what we've done before, which is what our hope, because to be quite honest, we feel that this is the best chance to represent the wants and needs of the island, because we have directly fed into it, and it gives, and being it will be the most recent LTP across the combined area, we can certainly say it's the most up to date.
That's really helpful, especially looking forward to the combined authority, where if we don't put our best case forward as soon as we can, we could miss out completely, where they're just not, we don't have the resources, or actually we don't have the responsibility anymore to actually produce our own plan, so we won't have a chance to really feed into it as much. It may not take, I get all of that, thank you. I've got then I've got Councillor Jarman.
So in terms of that, when you look for a cost benefit analysis, with something like the military road, it shouldn't just be taken as being the contents of the military road. It is a strategic road for the whole island. And I dare say that the tourism and highway benefit is far reaching as much as it encompasses the whole island. And certainly in terms of the A355, because it goes all the way from Ryde all the way through to Freshwater, and that being severed currently is having a negative effect and probably drags down the numbers. The other thing that isn't really alluded to is we obviously are highly reliant on our ferries, and by being highly reliant on our ferries, we're also highly reliant on two roads for our two main vehicle ferries. Whippingham Road goes down or Fishbourne Lane goes down, we are severely affected, and that needs to be addressed somehow as well within an ongoing plan for sustainability, because you're putting a lot of load through two little roads. And going back to say, this is a plan for, as I said before, I think this is a plan in name only for me. I don't see this as being a plan. And we did it before. We voted through an economic strategy which wasn't fit for purpose, and I don't want to make the same mistake again, because I don't think I'm accurately reflecting my residents' views by voting through something that isn't going to suitably serve them.
Councillor Jarman. Oh, Brian, you want to come back?
Yeah, it's coming back to you, Councillor Blake. The plan is written within the template of the plans that we are required to do as statute. And the template that we've used, which is where the strategy has come from, mainly for consistency, but also for government purposes, so they can judge us and measure us against other strategies in other areas, That's why the strategy and the plan says what it does, and at the level it says it does, which is quite strategic. And as Mr. Chandler pointed out earlier, sorry, there will be actions and plans falling out of that in terms of specific routes and specific pieces of work. The other thing I point out is that the island is inherently difficult in terms of transport routes because it's an island, and also because of the design of the island. The settlement of Newport, for example, all roads lead to Newport. That in itself inherently creates issues with transport, with connectivity. So we need to work within that basis in order to develop more solutions to the transport problems that we've got. And we need to do it realistically in terms of the resources that may become available or may be available. And that's what we're trying to do. We're doing a high-level transportation plan. Underneath that will be an item list of schemes that we think we can take forward, as well as some aspirational schemes, such as the military road. Conversation I had with DFT 2 or 3 years ago was the military road does not fit any DFT calculations or formulations in terms of funding, so it would not get funding from DFT at this time. But that doesn't stop us from trying to do it, and that's why we need to put in this high-level document. We have an aspiration to ensure that all aspects of the A3056 or the A3055, which are our key routes, are maintained as much as possibly can and are improved as much as we possibly can using the resources that are available.
Stuart, I'd just like to start off by thanking you for amassing 700 pages of material again. And I acknowledge the work that's gone into it. It has the word plan on the front, and I want to talk about a number of points, and I'll try and do them one at a time. The first one is that I recognize this document is full of aspirations. It's a collection of huge amounts of data. It covers a number of very high-level objectives and policies. But I've spent 40+ years of my life writing and reading plans. And one thing that's missing from it is a simple Gantt chart and a list of deliverables that the plan achieves. I don't find that easily within this material. I want to know exactly what I'm going to get, when I'm going to get it, and the mechanism by which it's going to be delivered. To me, that is a plan. So here we have a collection of high-level objectives and policy statements, and they're expressed in a very aspirational way. So I would encourage you to think about the title and specifically getting rid of the word plan, because it isn't that yet. And I understand that you're working on the next level, which will be the plan, but that's not available to us today. In terms of the 700 pages, I'd like to make a suggestion, and this doesn't just come down to this document, but to all documents in the council. Rather than having a very large section of data, demographics, etc., it would be satisfactory if we had a repository of documents, for example, a document which covered the demographics of this island, to which every report could simply refer, rather than regurgitating it. So that when we deal with something in education, it refers to the demographic paper, which is updated. When you refer to demographics, you refer to it. We don't need to reproduce 100 or 120 pages of technical data about demographics, age profiles, etc., in every paper that this council produces. And we'll all sit here as members, and we've all seen it many times, and it's consumed many trees in its printing and a lot of ink as well. So it would be a serious suggestion that we simply have a library of accepted wisdom documents which are maintained somehow, that we don't reproduce every time. That would be a good idea. The second thing is that you spoke earlier about a standardized template. Or sorry, it might have been Colin who spoke about it. I think a standardized template for developing an island plan might fit very well if you're Coventry or Leicester or Nuneaton or maybe some other mainland area. But it was expressed very clearly that that doesn't fit very well with us because we are unique. We have unique challenges, both in terms of isolation from the mainland and in terms of our geography and centralisation of Newport. We all accept that. So to try and follow a standardised template, which nationally might be appreciated, and to apply it to something which is inherently at variance with that is very challenging. So, for example, our connectivity to the mainland, which people have already alluded to, is absolutely critical, in my view, to having an integrated transport plan for the island. We cannot look at the island alone. The same way that if I was Coventry, I might be looking very clearly at the M40 or other areas that feed into my area as part of my overall strategy. We don't have that ability without looking at the ferries. The ferries and the connectivity into and out of those ports is mission critical to the lifeblood and sustainability of this island. So those, to me, are absolutely mandatory elements at the onset of any plan. So before I go into the other questions that I've got, I'll just pause at that point and just give you a chance to reflect on what I've said so far.
Thank you. That does give me an opportunity to address the points that you've set out. The reason it's called the Island Transport Plan is because it is in line with that standards that you said previously. It has to be a recognised local transport plan. That is a known and legal required document. So therefore, the transport plan has to be, and this follows that form of that. What is attached to it to make it a complete set of documents is the implementation plan and the monitoring and evaluation plan, which then goes on the back of it. So basically you set out your table of your strategy, your objective, your policies, the reasons that you want to get there, your evidence base, your drivers of change, all of that is set out. So then you can evidence why you're taking that route. The next documents will take you through to how you're going to measure your performance on meeting those aspirations, and also what are you going to do. And that's where the plan in the true sense is understood. But for the purposes of a local transport plan, it is about the strategy, the policy, the objectives. It's those that take you to that implementation plan. If you don't back those up with an LTP in a recognised form, then funding is much more difficult to get hold of nationally, or even from a combined authority who will be following the same route of requirement. So therefore, we've got to go through, a bit like we're talking around the A3055, the difficulties with a business case for the Department of Transport. Your requirements of that would be, is it referenced, does it align with your LTP? Yes, it does. Is it going to be an implementation plan? Yes, it does. And what policy alignments? But does it meet the 5-stage business case, full business case that is required? Does it meet all those tests? Yes or no? We have to follow the government formula in making our requests for funding and then getting capital projects, what we need for those capital projects. The other point you mentioned, so that goes in regards to the structure. The other point you meant, why we do it in such a way. I should also refer to the fact that this document in its total size is 140 pages, 140, so if I'm going to get it right, it's much less than the pack that you have in front of you. And that's because it's the request of committee to have as much information as possible printed. And so you get to 100 page 132, and then we're on the appendices of the actual document. And then beyond that are the other appendices attached to the main report, which are the supplementary documents that supports why and how we've gone about creating the document. All of the wider considerations, we would normally have an equality impact assessment. For this, we've got an integrated sustainability assessment, which takes into account many other different factors, habitat regulations, and many others as well. So therefore, you end up with a whole pack of documents. But if we're happy for the report or the single document to be taken forward in its isolation and the rest to be retained electronically, that would certainly reduce on the pack and what would need to be read. And the supplementary information is always going to be published. It's always going to be made available online, so it can be accessed as and when you would wish to. The matter in regards to, and it picks up Councillor Blake's point as well, the matter in regards to the ferries, they are recognised that they are unique pretty much to the island. No other island within the UK has a population of this size, as many ferry trips across a stretch of water as what we do, and we carry as many passengers on our services as the combined ferry services for the Inner and Outer Hebrides and the wide area of Scotland. So by comparison, we've got one location. However, we cannot deal with it in isolation because the ferry connections are both sides of the water, the infrastructure required for both of those are both sides of the water. So this is where we will certainly be looking for the combined authority to assist with that bit and recognise that bit. For us, it's massively important. For others within the combined authority, it might not be, but it's our opportunity to go, no, for the island, this is what we need. We need a ferry service that works, and the benefit economically for us to be able to access, growth areas just the other side of the water, be brilliant for the island. So therefore, we've got to get that right, but we've got to do it in partnership. So it's very much going to be on the top of the priority list for the combined authority to look at. And also, in addition to that, the government has set up or have supported the setting up of a Solent Transport Board, which is looking at this matter in detail. And it's separate to the Island Transport and Infrastructure Forum, which I and others sit on as well, which talks around the issues on island, as well as with our ferry operators. That specifically looks at that connectivity issue across the water. And we're very much going to support that work going forwards. But what we can't do is make promises within here that would potentially impact or significantly impact what's happening on the other side of the water. So it was always intention. We would reference it. We would make sure that that key route to and from the ferry terminals is protected. It will be identified as key routes. There's no doubt that each of our 3 car ferry terminals and the connecting routes will be on the key route network because it's essential they are, and it's essential they are on the other side of the water as well. So those will be protected at the highest level. We just need to make sure that we have got everything else covered that the island needs, because as we all are facing, congestion is a big issue on the island. We need a network that works better for us, that is resilient to the changes of the climate, and also it works, is something that's becoming more of a problem. Like when we have a single road closure, congestion grinds us to a halt. So therefore, we need to rely on something more efficient, like public transport and other modes, to actually ease that burden that's on the very restrictive road network that we've got.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Did you have anything more you wanted to ask, Councillor Jarman? Okay, just mindful of our time allocation for this and our guests here. So, and you'd like to, yeah.
The second level I've got is, and I understand the issue about, in reality, it's not a plan, but we have to call it a plan because that's what the government requires to call it. And the actual plan will come later. Get that. The later bit, to be honest, is what I'm more interested in. The strategic routes to the ferry are useful, but they're only useful in a holistic context. And if we don't think holistically about these matters from the outset and deal with them, I think we're running into a problem. So ensuring that we have great routes to and from the ferry is well and good, provided the ferries are usable by island businesses and economic to use by them, and provided that they're actually running. So the word resilience comes out very importantly. The economic balance of that comes out very strongly. And those are challenges which we alone are not addressing. Now, we could all sit here and say we've been trying to address them for a long time and we've failed, because that's the reality of the case. We could all say that we're unable to impact them. I don't believe that to be the case. I think we can impact them, and I think there are alternatives. But we have to look at the holistic question that we're faced here in terms of the island, not just Newport as a central point of connectivity, not just the routes to the ferries, but also all the enormous diversity of villages that we have. So I happen to come from an area called Totland and Cornwall. It's not terribly well connected in many ways. It's stuck out there on the end of the west end of the island. It's got some nice needles, or it used to have. But there are lots of villages which are even worse connected. We've got Councillor Stewart who's here, whose village arguably is probably even less connected than Freshwater or Totland is. So making sure that we've got a plan that addresses and embraces those distant villages is quite important. And I don't see that coming in here. But to come on to a couple of specific questions, we refer to an objective in here of sustaining economic growth. I went through the prima facie descriptors, what we were trying to achieve here, very, very high level issues, and tried to find out where in the document it says how this is going to deliver sustainable economic growth. I couldn't find it. I read the statement, protect enhancement of the island UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. I can't find where that is in the report. I get the issue that we are trying to start at the very top of a process. We might use the word funnel here. I'll try and avoid that too many times today. But we do need to understand, I think at the same time, what the result is at the bottom. And if it's not a Gantt chart and a series of deliverables and improvements, then I find it very difficult to start and look at something in a totally theoretical context at such a high level that it's not something I can relate to my individual village. Does this deliver a safe cycle route from Bryston to Freshwater? Does it deliver an improved transport infrastructure for the villages in the West White? Does it maintain the integrity and security of the key routes that we've got? We've already heard no, because we don't have a plan for that, and agencies that we might seek funding for have denied them. So all of the key things which for me, and I'm guessing most of my residents and my businesses are important, are absent. And it's that level of detail which we need to see. I'll stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chan, I'd like to come back and obviously be telling us about these supplementary documents, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wiggins. Yeah, apologies. So the implementation plan is holistic, like I say, covers a variety of different interventions, both capital, so actual physical interventions, but also encouragement for behaviour change, whether that's reduced fares on services or additional concessions, or just other encouragement for younger people to travel by active modes as well, and likewise older generations as well. But it does require that piece. So that covers off the holistic piece for the whole island across all of the different policy areas, all of the different sub-policies within this document, how we're going to tick and cover those off through actual measures that you'll be able to go back to your communities and say, this is what we can do. However, what it doesn't address is, like you mentioned, the geographical differences or the socio-demographic differences between conurbations on the island, whether that be a rural cluster, whether that be a wholly urban area, or a mixture of the two. So if you break the island up in sections, that often it does, you've got the West White, you've got the South White, you've got the North Medina, so East and West Cowes and the Medina Valley, Newport, Ryde, the Bay, and South White, probably Seaview, Neston and Bembridge as well. And so you're covered the island of that. What that then calls out for is an area study, which takes those bits from here, the strategy, which takes the bits from an implementation plan, goes, what works here? What works at this ground level? This village will never have a 10-minute bus service. Okay, what can we do then? We need an even hourly bus service. So for like Bryston and so forth, they want something that's more clock-faced, something that's more regular. Okay, but what else could work there? Demand responsive transport. But also for the West White, what do you need? You need an active travel corridor. Island Green Links referenced within that. That will produce a green active travel corridor from the West White into Newport that we've never had before. And that will be covered by another supplementary document, the active travel strategy and the LC WIP for which is the local cycling, walking infrastructure plan for individual areas. Most of the island's covered, but both Councillor Blake and your own areas are not at the moment because the Vent area and the West White doesn't. We're commissioning those and they're currently going to go out to tender next month. And so we'll hopefully have those for air. We will have the complete set then, but they've got to sit within that strategic network of cycle routes, which then we've got to connect together through that active travel strategy that's been commissioned alongside. So there's a number of different layers. This is only the beginning. This sets us on our strategy, our direction where we want to get to, not the detail. The detail will come later. And this is where we get down to the nuts and bolts of what's the issues within individual communities, because the one issue that you're facing would not be the same that Councillor Adams is facing over at the other side of the island, at Benbridge and that way as well. So Sea View, can be very different. So therefore we've got to tailor it to those areas. That's where we have those area studies, which will go down into more deeper area. We're going to have a lot of focus on Newport, unfortunately, Councillor Evans, but we will be doing all of that as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. John. Councillor John, I'm going to move on if you
One quick question.
one quick.
then.
I'm
All right,
going to
just
time
one
you.
quick area. So it's rather like reading the preface of a book without reading the book itself. I want to read the book, but and I can't because it's not available yet. So I don't know if the preface is accurate because I can't read the book. But specifically on a couple of things, then, when we say I'm on page 27 here. When we say creating jobs, regeneration by creating jobs, how do I know where those jobs will be and how many it will be? When I look at reducing social deprivation being one of the key ones, what is the target for that? We cover on one of the pages, section 11 in here, that we're 80th in terms of social deprivation. So what is our target? Is our target, if we're talking about only high level things, is our target not to be 80th, but to be 50th? You know, unless we've got some target to develop policies and an agenda against, I don't understand how we can even start by developing policies. So what are the targets specifically? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. I'm guessing, again, when you do that granular level, that area work and seeing what interventions value, then you can work out backwards from there what impact that's going to be or how many jobs can be. But I'm not going to, speak for you, Mr. Chandler.
That's absolutely fine. We don't know, to be quite honest, what the future is for the island in 15 years' time, because none of us unfortunately do. That things are so fast paced at the moment that what we would have thought had been the case 15 years ago, it certainly isn't the case now. Unfortunately, we're in a very different space. So therefore, we have to be realistic about what we can achieve. The next two key documents that go with this, as I mentioned, the implementation plan, and the other one is the monitoring and evaluation plan. This is where we will set our targets, our granular, what we're going to measure it against. Have we done it? Have we got more passengers on services? When we're talking about creating jobs, it's about access to jobs. Transport is an economic driver or economic growth driver, because if you improve that transport network, you're connecting residential areas or places of occupation to employment, to training, to education. So therefore that has to be right to make it all work. We can have new developments, brilliant, we've got new houses, but if they're not served by the right infrastructure, they're meaningless to us. They will only cause further issues, and they're not the right houses creating jobs. In regards to deprivation, we know, and it's reported within here as well, deprived areas, not just on the island, but nationally, rely more on public transport and transport as a whole, certainly, non-private transport to get around, so active modes and public transport, because of the cost of running your own car and so forth. So therefore, we can improve public transport, and therefore we're making a positive impact for those areas which historically been deprived. And we are seeing issues with social isolation and rural isolation in the rural areas. So therefore, we've got to target those areas. So it's not just about the towns, it's also about the rural areas as well. So that's what will come next.
Okay, and as far as the urban areas goes, I talk for Newport Central, my long-suffering residents having to put up with lots of traffic and noise and pollution and what have you. It's about improving their quality of life as well. and it's about and the traffic through the town and how we can adjust that, so we don't having these bottlenecks that Councillor Blake spoke about earlier. So it's about equality for all, sort of access to transport. It's about quality of life. It's amenity. It's their health. It's their outcomes and their opportunities. So I see how that brings that forward. Right, Councillor, I hope you feel somewhat mollified by that explanation, that until we look at the granular detail, we don't know what the outcomes will be, but obviously linking that in with popular planning policy as well, with our economic strategy as well, it all sort of links together. Now, we've only heard from a third of the member of the committee, but Councillor Adams next. So anyone else wants to speak, please indicate, but I will be moving this on about in 15 minutes. Yep, Councillor Jeffries, Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Yes, I have problems with this policy. I've actually read those first 132 pages or whatever that was, amended to, and I have some real concerns. This seems to me a real demonisation of the motorists, and it actually seems that it's trying to take away some of our freedoms of movement, and that concerns me. I don't believe the public are aware of what is buried in here. I think with your funding, if this gets to go ahead, I don't think you're going to have any problem with the funding, because things that concern me is in here is quantifiable carbon guidance, carbon budgets, impact assessments and offsetting, upper limits on amount of carbon emissions that can be released in a 5-year period, forums to maximise opportunities to monitor combined carbon impacts, ways of charging to travel by car. It's eco levy, pay as you drive, mobility credits. Where does it stop? What do you intend to charge us for? Because to me, we already, in my opinion, I already pay per mile. I pay that on my fuel duty. This just seems another tax on tax on tax. I'm sorry to say that, Stuart, and it's a simplistic view, but many of the people that I associate with won't agree with anything that's in there. And I think the 450 people that are surveyed, with the greatest respect, it's not representative of the island. They are, with all politics, there's a lot of empathy about it. People do not respond, unfortunately. They do not engage until it's too late. And I just have fears that this won't address what we need to deliver for the island. And I just have concerns of what's buried in this policy.
Councillor Adams, do you want to respond, Mr. Chandler?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Is to say that it's not solely car centric, you are right, because it's not about just one mode of transport. This is about choices and true choices. If everyone chose just to travel in their individual private vehicles, the network that we face issues with, certainly during the summer, I have requests across the island for measures to prevent people from, congesting local roads and causing issues. We would get those many times more. Car ownership is going up and continues to go up. So therefore, we've got to look at a network that begins to move that trend a little bit and offers up other alternative choices. As I mentioned earlier, those within the deprived communities very much often rely on public transport or active travel because they can't afford a car. So therefore, we've got to, and again, quite rightly, focus our efforts on supporting them. And that is what we're doing here. The recognition in regards to road tax. Road tax is an issue that the government as a whole is trying to deal with, because the transition to electric vehicles is very much a growing theme and will continue to be, with fossil fuel expense and the impacts of reliance on fossil fuel have become known. The issues we've got at Leeson Road, Military Road, will have only been exacerbated by the increased rainfall movement, which again, in some ways is attributed to climate change. So therefore we can't, we have got to protect ourselves going forwards. We've got to recognise that there is this move towards electric vehicles, so we very much need to focus on that. But our network on the island will not get significantly bigger. We can't build capacity into our road network. We do not have We don't want to be building over, tarmacking over any more green space unnecessarily, not just because it impacts on the nature, but that's a big significant thing, especially where we're UNESCO biosphere, but also water runoff, the lack of permeable surfaces, that causes massive issue. And especially if you're widening carriageways, you're displacing it further, it impacts on floodplains and the issues further back upstream as well. So there are a number of factors that go about that. Again, air quality, improvements associated with the conversion to EV. We will have 31 electric buses on the island in operation by the end of March. The amount of carbon that cuts out of our and improvement of other particulates of the environment is significant. It will help the health of the island. And a lot of this is very much focused on what we're already supporting for our public health strategy, for our climate strategy, for our planning, draft planning strategy going through as well. So it aligns with all of those. It is moving in that direction. The other one in regards to the measures where we include consideration for levies and so forth. These are the sticks. If the carrots don't work, we've got to make sure that we've got everything available to us to move things along, because best will in the world, you know, we can say, please do car share. You know, we don't, for every one vehicle, you know, 2 people in it, we'll save a vehicle on the road. That will halve the congestion between Ryde and Newport in the peak time in the morning. We know that people don't work like that. So therefore, we've got to say, what's the incentive for them to move out of a single car occupancy situation to something else? Give them choices. So, well, no, that to incentivize them in the first instance is to do the things like mobility credits, like you mentioned, or offer reduced fares on public transport, increase our concessions, which we can, you know, go to the combined authority to say, actually, could we have a concession for younger people, for under 25s to travel free in public transport? That would make a massive difference. Not just, you know, we're yet to engage with the younger people through the infrastructure transport, the Island Transport and Infrastructure Forum, but we're going to shortly to hear their specific concerns around it. Many of them don't have access to a car, so they rely on active travel or public transport. We need to make that easier. So we've got to have that cycling, walking infrastructure. We've got to have cheaper or free fares for them. And it means not just that they're interacting socially, but they can start on their employment paths. They can start on, and some of them to assist with further education as well. This is why we've got to build that together. And this is what this is about.
Thank you. I'm going to, Councillor Blake, I'm going to move on because I haven't heard from Councillor Jeffreys or Councillor Nicholson yet, and we're going to finish this item at 6:15, hopefully, because we've got guests, and I've also got something else I'd like to say as well. Plus, we've got to move to the vote. This is absolutely urgent. No, okay, it's not urgent. Okay, right, Councillor Jeffreys.
Good evening, Stuart. Just on the electrical charging points, which you touched on, electrical vehicles just now. Since 2022, there's been 33 installed. Now, in the paper, it states that there's going to be 1,180 installed up to 2030. Now, that seems to me, considering how many's been put in beforehand since 2022, a bit too ambitious. And also, is the funding available for that?
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Yeah, it is. We've got a tender that has gone out. We will be evaluating those this week, or this week coming, and then we'll be getting providers to come in to demonstrate what they're going to offer. The initial proposal is to have 500 charging points, but there will be dual connections, so we get up to 1,000 and more. And so in a relatively short period of time, we will have a concession contract with an operator for the island that will roll out at pace and across, you know, so that we're focusing on primarily on those areas where they can't afford. So again, it helps the deprived communities where they can't afford a house that has off-street parking and to install their own electrical connections. So therefore, we'll be focusing on those areas that rely on on-street parking as the primary. 75% of £1.6 million fund to support that is there. The rest of the money being made up is the commercial proposition from the providers, and 25% will be in car parks where they can really generate commercial revenue.
Thank you.
No rest.
Councillor Nicholson. Oh,
Thank you. Stuart, I'd just like to confirm that this proposed transport plan welcomes and accommodates, makes room to accommodate local area place plans and any emerging local area policies and strategies that might deal with transport economy at a more local level. That's one question. The other one, we did talk about Lincoln Place, but I couldn't see where that was mentioned in the plan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This will feed, well, or should I say, those documents will feed into those area studies and those plans, and this very much is embedded within this. For this document, it's called Movement and Place. And so movement and place is embedded within this document, and we'll be looking to commission a movement and place assessment for the island imminently as well. We've just got to scope it up, because we then need to, you know, like you say, for the Cowes and Northwood area, we've got to look at that granular level about what's the requirement there. And we'll pick up on the LC whip. That's already got a basis to start that from. We'll take it further. But yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
thank you. If it's not supplementary, Councillor Nicholson.
Lincoln Place?
That's movement and place on this one. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Blake, you want to come back in, and then I've got Councillor Adams, and anyone else who hasn't spoken, and I've got Councillor John, and then I will speak, and then hope we can wrap this up on moving to a decision. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, in order for people to use public transport, it has to suit the need of why they need to move across the island. I think of people like for instance, elderly people that we have numerous amounts of, more than other areas. They can't go and do their weekly shop on a bus. It just is not possible. You can't, for instance, as well, if you're, say, living in my ward in St Helens, sorry, St Helens, it's St Lawrence, sorry, but St Helens would also work. You can't get on your push bike, go into Ventnor to get the nearest bus, put that push bike on the bus, go to Newport, get off, take your push bike and go to where you're going, because you're not allowed push bikes on the bus. So things like, so no one in St Lawrence is ever going to use a bus. And that would be the same for majority of the West White, majority of our rural areas, because it's not usable for what you need to use it for. So that's why everyone's in a car, because it's the only way you can do what you need to do to exist.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So that's considered within here, that car ownership in a predominantly rural location is a given for many reasons. And it's not just the inability to use public transport to convey shopping. It's about timing of appointments. It's about other arrangements, onward connections and so forth. That's inevitability. But what we can do is, if they make those car journeys 7 days a week, if they made them 4 days a week by car and the other 3 by public transport or another means, that's a hell of a lot of pressure off of the road network. That will help in just a simple way. And I do get it that there isn't public transport on a regular basis in certain areas. So therefore, how does this tackle it? It tackles it through digital accessibility, because as we all know now, and certainly the COVID pandemic sped it up, home delivery service, and a lot of elderly residents rely on shopping being brought to them for a number of different reasons, a lot to do with accessibility and ability as well, whether it's for a specific company that provides meals on wheels essentially, or that sort of service. That is now available to them. We need to upskill to ensure that our older generations have access to the best digital connections they can have, the best infrastructure, and therefore also the ability to do it, the education to be able to do it as well. And this is within this plan as well. This is the point on this in regards to digital connection. It plays hand in hand. We need to rely less on having to get somewhere. if we can actually bring it to them. And then if they are travelling by bus and they're not having to take the shopping and they do want to travel by bus because they'll have a free bus pass, they've got the English National Concession to travel after 9:30 free and all over weekends, is to go to those social events, which mean a lot to these individuals in rural locations who are otherwise isolated. So increasing bus provision within those areas could make a massive difference to deal with social isolation and also mental health, especially in the older generations.
Councillor Adams, will come back in?
You Chair. Yes, Stuart, one more important point I missed. It's charge points. If we get this delivery of our charge points, however many there are, I believe we have a problem with our interconnector on the Isle of Wight. And I believe we're near capacity. So when we get our 31 new buses, how many additional electric vehicles will the grid actually be able to take in its current form?
As it stands, we're in an enviable position compared to many places on the South Coast. Southampton can't have any electric buses. The Isle of Wight can have, and we are proposing to turn every bus out of Newport, which will be 54 buses in total, electric, if we can get the additional funding that I've been seeking even today. The power is not an issue for the island. We produce more. We have solar generating networks on the island, which we're having to turn off. We've got community funded solar arrays, which at the moment have got a glut of electricity. So therefore, we can use it for these purposes. This is why something on the island, even considerations of hydrogen production, is something we could do here that other places couldn't, because we've got the opportunity to generate more. And so therefore, we're not struggling like that. The DNO, Southern Electric in our instance, has said nothing in regards to capacity. We've got more than enough capacity to do Nelson Road Depot, and we're now looking at other locations across the island where we can further that even more. So, yes. Because if the DNO would be advising us otherwise, because they allocate out how much power they've got. They know how many developments are coming forward, how many is proposed. They would not sell that to a company like Southern Vectors or others, say, right, we're going to give you this connection, if they knew that they were going to walk themselves into a longer term problem. What it does give the opportunity for more is a creation of more. You know, if there's other ways to generate more electricity, brilliant, the market's there, because this is what we need as well. But places like Southampton look at us and go, we can't get an electric bus, we can't get one till 2038, even though they've got a poor air quality. They're within an air quality action zone. Can't deal with that because they haven't got the electric, but we can, and we don't want to get into that position.
If I could just bring the leader in briefly, I think this is a broader question actually than our local networks and generating our, solar and using that.
And the power's another issue on this island, not really to do with this, except that, as councillor sorry, I was thinking about it. Yes, God knows, no. Councillor Adams has pointed out that, and this is accepted by SSEN, it's accepted by others, that our grid capacity on the island is near capacity. And some of the reasons that we have to turn off our alternative energy sources because it can't go into a grid that's at capacity. This is a different issue to it's, I think it's tautology that we're getting caught with, but it's an issue that SSEN know about and have longer term plans to address in terms of a fourth connector cable to the island and upgrade of the grid.
That'd be transformative. I think the local network is slightly different, isn't it? I mean, Mr. Minge, just get up at Medina High School. Sorry, One Leisure for Medina Leisure Centre. What do we do then with our pool cars? We use the excess energy to charge our cars up, so that doesn't go anywhere near the grid. But it's almost like a local network, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Councillor Jordan is correct there. in respect that the issue we've got is that we have to turn it off. The network can't take it. We can't get rid of it. We can't get it off the island. So therefore, we can't, if there isn't the demand, the supply is outstripping it and outdoing the network that's available to us. We don't have the storage capacity. So therefore, if we can create the demand for electrifying vehicles and buses and all of that, brilliant. We can keep those solar arrays on much longer and not have to turn them off, and it won't overload the network. There's a constant in these, you know, as technologies advance, a bit like the battery technology on buses, technology is advanced where you don't need so many daylight hours. You've got other means as well, whether it's wind and so forth. You don't get those on the island, but we get over surplus in the summer. We then go back because generation is not so great during the winter, but we're certainly not, they're not shouting at us saying, no, you're going to use too much.
Can I? Could we move on there? But thank you. Yeah. Miss Spins, did you want to comment at all on that, or?
Top of the leisure centre at Medina, and we use that power to heat and light the leisure centre, which obviously saves us money. But because of the amount of power that we're generating, we're also storing the heat in the water some of the time as well. And we're also charging the vast majority of the cars that are driving around the island in for the council from those solar panels up at Medina. So we've relocated a lot of the fleet up at Medina Leisure Centre. So it's a good use of a grant funded project. That was a SALEX funded project, and it'd be nice to see that occur in other parts of the island as well.
So I have got Councillor John wants to come in very briefly, I understand, and I've got Councillor Best who hasn't spoken yet, and then I think that's everybody apart from me. I've got a couple of questions myself, so we'll move on. We'll finish at 6:30. So that's next call for an extension.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I was just picking up on some of the.
I meant not the whole meeting, just this section.
Okay, I was picking up on some of the responses to Councillor Adams. Generally, I find that people react even worse to sticks than they do to carrots in life. You know, whether it's increasing parking charges or the introduction of a Newport ULEZ zone, for example, with congestion charging, whatever it would happen to be, I think that the reaction to sticks is always much worse. But one thing I did want to ask is two points to it. One is, you talked about the problems of runoff. So why is it we simply don't move immediately so that all new road surfaces and all replacement and all repairs to road surfaces are of a permeable substance? Other countries have got it, works perfectly well. I see it in Germany all the time. I see it in France now quite a lot, that the whole road surface is permeable. Yet we don't do that. So something to think about, let you think about that while I do part B of the question, which is, what is the plan? Where is the graphic of our island villages showing where we're going to introduce safe, dedicated cycleways between those villages so that adults and children can use them safely without congesting with cars? Particularly Bryston to Freshwater, because I mentioned it earlier.
That's John. Mr. Chandler.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've colleagues in the room far more expert in regards to materials for road construction and so forth than I, and I would have to defer to them on that. However, what we are aware of at this point in time, we are working to a specification to our roads that was previously agreed. We will and explore with Island Roads and in the future with others about what materials can be used to the road, and as those come into the market that are more sustainable, more permeable, brilliant. You know, we will certainly look to advance those where possible. Ideally, where possible, a bit like on the Island Green Link, we won't look for always a bound surface. We will look for something that is less intrusive within those locations, because otherwise it only just causes us an issue. And, you know, this is the balance that we will always have. In regards to rural connectivity, when it comes to active travel, local cycling walking improvement plans will very much focus on that. So the West White one, when rolled out, will focus on that area. Vent area will be covered by an LC whip. We've got them in existence for the Bay area. We've got them in existence for Brading, St Helens and Seaview. So, you know, you can see how those areas can be covered by such plans, and they will identify existing infrastructure, but also the missing gaps and what's next. And wider to that is an active travel strategy, which identifies the core routes. But what I'm saying is that you can't expect that every close, real rural location is going to be served by a complete safe and excluded cycle route, because one, you wouldn't want it in a rural setting like that. It wouldn't be in keeping with a protected landscape. So therefore you would have to balance that off. So you're looking at other measures to ensure that people can use routes, good rights of way network, good footways where possible, and other opportunities for them. But unfortunately, in the very most rural locations, you are constricted by the landscape in which you are living. But where possible, we connect them all up.
Very much.
Thank you, Chair. So the key is it's yet to come. It's not a plan that we can see today.
It's not the purpose of this plan. And that's what, again, just as saying again, the purpose is not, this is our direction. This is our strategy. 15 years time, where do we want to be? We don't want to be an over urbanized, polluted, constrained transport network. We want to be in a well balanced, well integrated and efficient transport network and environment for the island. That's where we want to be.
Councillor Beston, be very patient.
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly, be succinct. The electric infrastructure, charging infrastructure aspiration is huge, absolutely huge. And there's nothing wrong with that. So the question is funding. How do you propose that is funding? Is that through the DFT or would that be for a third party?
The DFT provide us with £1.68 million towards the local electric vehicle and infrastructure fund. And that is a contribution to a commercial concession. So that is like the Kickstart fund, and the rest will come from the commercial body to fund the rest and long-term running. It is based on a commercial model, and therefore that's where it's coming from. So that funding's secured, that's in place, and the business case is there. And it's now just going out, as I say, appointing a charge point operator, and they will roll it out. And it's a 15-year contract as well. So similar, so one of the larger contracts we've got for the island. For the concession, it is significant because of the amount of money that they can generate out of it. This is why you've got the balance of on-road as well as car parks, because car parks are where they want to see where the money is going to come from in the main. But that low-level charging on the network overnight when people are parked outside their house, charge up their vehicles, that's again a constant flow. That could be the bread and butter, the rest can be commercial benefit. And we get a profit share of that as well.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to just finish off just saying a couple of things. Just want to thank you and your team for doing this work. It's a huge amount of work. And thank you for presenting all of the evidence so members were able to read it. I didn't print off my pack this month. like a bit, we can all refer to it online as you said we can do. So I don't think there's anything there's no stone that hasn't been unturned here. I don't believe in preparing this document. And although things may not be perfect, I don't think there's anything perfect. I mean, we've got plenty of documents that we work to that we wouldn't call perfect. But it's everything moves on, as said, very quickly and all the time. So I think this is a really good document for right now to enable us to move on to all those other plans that you talked about. So personal thank you to you and all the other people that are involved with this. It's a huge amount of work. And similarly, got Mr. Min sitting over there. Thanks again for the work for the economic strategy. There was a disparaging remark earlier that it was, waste of space. I don't believe that. I thank you all for the hard work, and we need these strategies to be able to move forward and do the best for our islands. I just want to put that on the record. I've got a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. Local nature recovery strategy, I had that written down, but presumably that will be another sort of thread of work coming about how we're going to work with biodiversity and the biosphere. That'd be another document.
Yeah, that's my understanding. That's already in place through the planning department. So it's very much we have to acknowledge that and work to that now as an adopted requirement.
Thank you. And you also refer to the High Street Heritage Action Zones in the report and in the appendices. has in my ward and in Councillor Jordan's, very, very important to our local communities, especially our urban communities. The one in Newport, focused around the High Street mainly, was about giving pedestrians more space, making the car a little bit less overbearing, so to improve on the noise, just the general quality of the environment walking around the town, so you actually enjoy all of our historic buildings. So we started that, I think our first meeting just before the pandemic hit in 2020. We still haven't had those improvements. I hear they're coming, but these are absolutely imperative that we deliver on these schemes. One schemes have already got funding for, and schemes that have been passed, we've had, obviously government have said, yes, brilliant, crack on, get on with it, still not delivered them. So that's a real, that's a problem for me. I don't know if you was anything you wanted to say about that. And then I've had one more sort of, not my idea exactly, but you talk about young people and be able to travel around. I was just wondering whether we could do like a bus pass swap. So, if an older person who's got a bus pass, could they nominate a young person and they give them their bus pass? There might be some ingenuity in that kind of thing. So I'm sure there's plenty of people that are older actually can afford to get the buses, but it's our younger generation that need to get around, and actually keeping them off the roads in cars will actually save many lives, as well as we know it's sadly a fact of life. So yeah, just wanted to sort of park those two bits with you, and then I'll finish up. We'll go to the decision.
No, thank you. And you're quite right. This is not just my work. This is work of a team and others who have really put a lot of effort into getting this document together. And it's a big thanks to everyone, to actually get to the point where we are. We started this journey in 2021, or really looked at it just straight after the pandemic. It's taken this long to get here because of many different factors. So this is our last chance to get this over the line, and really it's going to be good. I should reflect that this is also a living document. This is not going to be the final piece ever, because we've got to all realise that the world environment and everything around us, the needs and wants of the people and population will change. So therefore, this has to change. We're inbuilt within this is a 5-year review period, but we can look to review this on a more regular basis, and we'll be pressing the combined authority to do the same. The questions in regards to the HAS, they are still very much a part of the Island Green Link project. We're exploring the ways in which we can deliver those. So Newport is not gone. So whether it carries on under the Island Green Link or as a supplementary project, it's very much still on piece. For Ryde, very much, because we are in the process of securing a contractor to actually deliver on those works, but it's all in the final throes of that as well. And like you say, our high streets have to adapt. Our high streets are they're facing challenges like never before and continue to do so. So therefore, we've got to work with them for these pieces, make those environments better, keep people to stay there, dwell, spend more money, relax, and use it in a different way. The other one in regards to youth, we're very keen to hear what we can do to help and support the younger generations, because we've got an ageing population on the island. They will rely ever more on the younger generations to support them in the future. So therefore, we've got to encourage a growth of younger generations, but also to make their lives a little bit easier as well.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I think what I've learned this evening is that, and I hope all of us have learned, that this committee is very, very interested in transport. It affects every single one of us, affects every single one of our residents. So it's primary in our minds. And we have also different, the urban from the rural is completely different. And so it's good to have these discussions. So I'm just wondering whether ahead of maybe the next supplementary document coming forward, or maybe have a separate briefing, and then maybe we won't have to grill. I don't feel like you're being grilled so much, but I mean, Ms. Chandler, you answered everything impeccably, and you've got a lot of knowledge there. So I think we appreciate that, and maybe a separate private briefing will be a good thing to move forward when we go to the next stage.
Always happy to engage, and I'm always up for a challenge. So by all means, don't hesitate from asking those awkward questions. And if there's a particular issue within any particular ward as well, I'd say this to you. And when it goes to, if it can get through to full council, I'd say it to all the councillors, please do let us know, because we want this to be reflective, not just this document, but everything that comes out next, of the true issues on the island. So thank you.
Thank you. So members, I think we've given that a really good go. I'm going to move on to the recommendation, which is on page 11. And the recommendation is the committee approves the final draft Yarn Transport Plan as attached to Appendix 1 and recommends its adoption to full council. So do you have another go? You can talk about it all over again at full council. So I'm looking for a, Chair, I'll propose it.
I will second that. Chair.
Second that. So all those in favour? Those against? And any abstentions? Lovely. So that's carried, I believe. Thank you. Members, I'm going to call a 3-minute comfort break. So if I leave the chair, I think I might get in trouble because we haven't got a vice chair, so I don't want to worry Mr. Potter unduly. So if we just have a 3-minute comfort break.
Just a quick request, Chair. Could we swap the two next agenda
I
items?
was going to do that. I was going to do that, Mr. Rowland. Yeah, that was my next thing. Yeah. Right, well, thank you. We'll just reconvene the meeting after that very short break. So given we have a guest this evening from Island Roads, I'm going to move the PFI update ahead of the Cowes floating bridge. That's okay, everybody. So over to you guys over there. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Jones Evans. Thank you, committee. Thank you for adding this to the agenda. So I know that we had a briefing with those of you that were able to make it in December. And this is, for those who were able to make it, is a lot of the same topics covered. I'd like to introduce my colleague. This is Eddie Fellows. He is the new Chief Executive of Island Road Services Limited. So for those of you who have been to previous meetings of this before, you will know that Rob Gillespie was the outgoing chairman, and Eddie has taken over full-time since the 1st of December last year. So the PFI contract is at, oh, sorry, Councillor Jordan, I thought you were. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Just a little clarity on the I know that Island Road Services is the SPV and not the operating company. Just I wonder if you make that clear.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the way that the contract is structured is there is an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle. So the council actually has its contract with the SPV being Island Road Services Limited. And then there is another contract between Island Road Services Limited and Island Roads, who are the operating company. That's a standard setup for PFI contracts, and obviously then gives us, we have our negotiation and strategic conversations with the service company, and then we have our operational conversations with the operating company. Okay, so the PFI contract has reached a fairly pivotal turn in that on the 30th of September last year, we were exactly halfway through the 25-year contract. So we were 12 and a half years gone and 12 and a half years to go. And I think that was part of what sparked this request to have an update. This doesn't take the place of the formal performance reporting that is carried out as part of the PFI contract. So you will get that in your Q2 report. So this is a general update of the progress that has been made. For those of you who aren't familiar, and we will circulate these slides round after the meeting, so you don't have to take copious notes or anything. And if you have questions that you don't think of during the session tonight, then you are able to obviously drop myself or Eddie a line, and we will answer those questions. So you have private finance initiatives versus term maintenance contracts. We have a private finance initiative. Obviously, that's a long-term partnership. In this case, 25 years with circa £19.3 million per annum PFI credits provided by the Treasury. That has been confirmed that even as we go through the change of devolution, potential local government reorganisation, all of those things on the horizon, that will still remain. So the financing is there to see the life of the contract out. There is defined service levels, so output specifications, so that is what the contract is measured on. We said in our original business case and then tender documents what we wanted, and the service provider, in this case Island Road, says when, where and how. There's private financing for the capital investment. The service provider obviously borrows the money, and as a council, alongside the PFI credits that we receive from Treasury, pay it back in a single monthly sum, the unitary charge. We do have the ability to make payment adjustments because we monitor performance. One of the main benefits of the PFI contract is that the cost risk goes to the service provider as opposed to the local authority, and we have budget certainty, so we know what is required from the output specifications of the contract, and we know how much we're going to pay for that 25 years. Term maintenance contracts, so for instance, Hampshire is our neighbour at Southampton. They are our neighbouring authorities that have term maintenance contracts. So it's usually a shorter term, 5 to 10 years. It's funded by the annual grant, which is directly passed down from Treasury as part of their highways allocation. There are defined works instructions. The Highway Authority, as in the council, tends to retain a lot more of the responsibilities than, because the term maintenance contract generally focuses on operational delivery, and the risks remain with the council. So these are taken from the business case. So the business case for the island was written in 2011, and this is what the people that were involved in the business case at the time wanted to ensure that were delivered on the island during the private finance initiative contract. So improved network condition, address width and weight restrictions, install efficient street lighting, modern highway standards, obviously working with the changing environment, so deliver carbon, energy and water savings, increase recycling, to have that one service approach, so to have that central point of responsibility, to provide economic benefits and to develop and look after people. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll hand over to Eddie.
So I'm going to talk a bit about the delivery and the achievements. And as most of you all know from my accent, I'm a Brummie. I come from Birmingham. I shall be moving down onto the island. And one of the reasons that I've taken this job is because I believe that you have a very, very good delivery model for your highways, and you have a service which is really worth investing in and getting the most of it, the very best you can now for the final 12 years of the project. So if we look at network condition, that was one of the primary drivers for the PFI business case, and we look at the performance of road surfaces, where the Isle of Wight is leading nationally in that performance. Your smoother roads, road markings, drainage, all improved. I'll put a graph on there that shows the claims history from the beginning of the project, which it correlates with numbers of potholes and numbers of trips in footways and the like. So you can see that all the trends are very positive. And statistically, Island Roads have met 100% of the condition score targets and delivered its core investment fully, delivered the smoother profile, and as I say, then the claims have been reduced, which then reduces the amount of financial risk. Thank you. So how do we measure the carriageway condition? Because I know it's quite an emotive thing about what the condition of individual roads and why we're doing this road and not that road. Every road gets a survey every year, and we use two different techniques for that. One is called Scanner, which is a lorry-mounted laser machine which automatically measures the condition of road surfaces, and the other is through visual inspection. And then there's two metrics within the contract that we as Island Roads have to meet. The first one is an average condition for every district. It also splits down to every road hierarchy within every district, and we have to achieve a minimum score of 15 out of 20 and maintain that every year right to the end of the contract. And the other metric is the individual road condition, which we mustn't allow to drop below 6 without going and treating it. So if we get scores below target, that will drive a maintenance intervention which goes into the annual programme, and the annual programme gets delivered in effect the year after the surveys are done. So if we look at the amount of work that's been done, I said we started off as very low performance back in 2010, now up to top performing in the UK, and the works that we've completed have had a 99.4% quality. And I'll show you the numbers against that in shortly. So statistically, and I know this has had quite a lot of discussion previously about how much network is actually going to be treated. The total network just short of 800 kilometres, and the bid assumptions were that the majority of that would need to be treated within the core investment to meet the targets. Now, those assumptions were based on some very limited network data and very limited condition data, because the surveys hadn't been done prior to the PFI starting. So once the PFI was up and running, that we could then invest in all the surveys, and those surveys actually showed that we only needed to do 526 kilometres to meet all of the performance targets. So up to the end of the core investment period, we'd treated 71% of the network. But of course, we've got an annual programme which is continuing to deliver on top of that. I don't know the exact figure that we're at, but we're somewhere between 70 and 80% now, and a lot more will be treated over the next 12 years. And then the core investment rectification responded to concerns that a number of the road surfaces had deteriorated more quickly than would have been anticipated. So we've retreated 21,000 square metres, which represents just over half a percent, which is where the performance number of 99.4 is from at the top. And in street lighting, we've replaced all of the street lights with low energy LEDs, and all of those are now remotely monitored and remotely controlled. And equally, your traffic signal kit now is also running on LEDs, and all of that has made a dramatic change in the power bill. It's a shame that the cost of energy has gone up dramatically, so the overall cost has not come down as much as that graph shows, but the energy usage has come down by about 70%, which is a fantastic achievement. And on top of the engineering achievements, what you get with the PFI partnership is more economic benefits. So stimulating in industry and economy, environmental improvements, carbon, water, recycling. We've got lots of data around this. So if anybody's interested in seeing the data, we aren't going to present all of that today, but we've got that available if anybody's interested in seeing that. And also investing in people. So most of the people that we are employing are islanders. So our own workforce, the supply chain, lots of young people getting opportunities within our service. And on top of that, we're spending £84 million on local supply chains. That's a huge investment into the industry on the island, and a social value contribution of around about £150,000 per annum, and investing in apprentices and graduates. They don't all have to be young people, but they are generally young people, which I think is fantastic for the island. We do all that against quite a range of challenges, geological failures, which everybody is familiar with. I'm having to learn that because I come from an area where geological failure was never too much of a problem. A little bit of mining subsidence was all we had to really deal with. Flooding events, increasing utility works, and trying to make sure that all of our works are coordinated effectively with those. Being mindful of the value of the tourist industry and avoiding the summer holidays and the events. And that becomes challenging because that tends to push us into the winter months, which is not the greatest time to be delivering road surfacing. Construction material inflation cost, that's a risk that we take. And as everybody will appreciate, prices have gone up significantly and quite starkly within the material supply chain. Societal changes, which are regrettable, but more of abandoned vehicles, poor behaviour. We're experiencing quite a lot of road user abuse, people driving through roadworks, shouting at and being aggressive towards road workers, which is unacceptable, but it's part of the environment that regrettably we have to provide the service within. Number of other challenges, which I'm going to hand over to Michelle for.
Thank you, Eddie. Turn that off. Thank you. Yes, so obviously there have been a lot of achievements through the contract, but I think all of you have been within the organisation and know that there's also been significant challenges within sort of how the contract has been implemented and how we managed that contract successfully between all the parties. So there was obviously, as we talked about earlier, the CIP, which is the core investment programme, which is where the majority of the initial work takes place to bring that road network up to standard. There was some sites that had been identified that were deteriorating and failing quicker than was expected, and that was what set off the CIP rectification programme. You saw that the other 20,000 square metres of road network that was repaired as part of the CIP rectification programme. So that was done by a contractual change, a deed of amendment in 2021. There was a savings programme that took some services from the contract and obviously gave the savings to the council. There is always the ability to discuss further savings as well, because obviously we are all very aware that we're in a financially precarious position, and therefore there is that ability within the contract to look at the level of service and whether or not savings could be made from the contract. We would have to present those as a reasoned argument as to what the potential short and long-term costs of the council would be if we went ahead with any savings, but that is something that the committee would obviously be involved in should they choose to go down that route. I think it's fairly common knowledge that there have been contractual disagreements in the past, and that has gone to legal proceedings, and obviously those judgments and adjudications have been made. We also had a number of disagreements, so not at a formal dispute point, but a number of things that had stalled in the resolution of them. And when I came on board nearly 2 years ago now, Colin and I approached the DFT because obviously, as well as scrutiny by yourselves as members, we received scrutiny from the Department for Transport, the Treasury, and what is now called the National Infrastructure and Strategic Transformation Authority. It was called the Integrated Projects Authority, because they are the ones that obviously audit the expenditure of the Treasury's money. So Colin and I approached them, and they were very forthcoming in giving us support, and basically we have embarked upon for the last 12 months, starting around January last year, with a programme with NISTA about and funded by the DFT to support the way that we manage the contract, to look at what is challenging within it, those conversations, and how we can change both our behaviours, the behaviours within our contractor, in order to successfully manage that contract for the next 12 years. So that is what we've been doing. And as the last point says, better relationships and removing the barriers to collaboration. So we thank Island Road Services Limited have also invested in this and funded the hiring of some consultants in order to be able to help us to develop a complete programme change of actually how we deliver our contract management. So I will just briefly run through this because I think those of you that were at the briefing, you obviously met our NISTA consultants, and Matt, who is one of them, will be with us back on the island very soon. So basically we explored the issues that were being faced. I think both the council and Island Roads and IRSL were very well aware of the key issues that need to be resolved. We looked at what was going well, and also we've done a lot of work on what good contract management now looks like. And we have that two tracks, the cultural and contractual. So obviously the contract is still our central point. The contract hasn't changed since 2021. But how we talk about things and how we talk to each other, the cultural part of it has definitely changed over the last 12 months to make our conversations much more productive and to get a good chunk of the things that we were stuck on resolved. So what comes next? That's what we've been doing with the NISTA reset for the last 12 months. We now have with a transformation delivery timeline. For those members of the committee that are able to attend tomorrow, this is what we'll be discussing tomorrow in collaboration with Island Roads and with IRSL. So for the last 12 weeks, we've been looking at basically designing a transformation project. Then we have a 12-month transformation program. Further details of that will be given tomorrow and obviously can be distributed to the committee whilst a big proportion of our staff are coming tomorrow, so we will circulate those details to the committee, and that will basically set the tone for how we would like to manage the contract as people, as an integrated leadership team, so between the three organisations for the remaining 12 years. As Eddie said, and I have worked on PFI contracts across other authorities as well, this is a really good project. The work that is delivered is to a good standard. There are obviously, with a enclosed road network, there's always going to be a huge impact as soon as there is any kind of congestion because the traffic doesn't have anywhere else to go. But the standards that are delivered are very good and very high, and will, for us as a council in 12 years' time, when that PFI contract ends, we will have a really good quality road network as a long-term asset that will require minimal maintenance. It will obviously, all road networks require maintenance, but it will have had that investment for the last 25 years, which will ensure the future of it going forward when we become a direct highway authority again. And I think, so if we go back to the business case slide that was at the top, what the aim of this presentation to do was to show that the initial vision, the initial business case outline objectives have been met and continue to be met. And we obviously continue to be focused and committed on ensuring that they will be delivered successfully for the next 12 years. Okay, that is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fellows and Mrs. Love. Thank you. Members, have you got any questions? Bear in mind, we can always have another separate briefing if you want to deep dive on any other areas that we haven't touched
If
on.
I may then, let me. So really, it's good to see. Just a little query. I always had 812 kilometres, so we've lost, what's that, 16 kilometres? There are probably 16 kilometres that weren't resurfaced as well. But good to see that 744 was your bid assumption. That does correspond very roughly with a 93% intervention, which of course is what you put in your method statement. And as we know, method statements form part of the contracts that we have. But you only delivered 526. I wonder if we could explore a little bit how we only delivered 526 when you said you were going to deliver 744.
Yeah, I'll pick that one up, Councillor Jordan. So the whole approach of PFI and the format of PFI is that it is a risk transfer. It is for the service provider to take the risk of how much work actually needs to be done and how much that will cost to deliver against an output specification. So at the bid stage, and this is the same with every PFI, the bidder has to take a number of assumptions as to what will actually be required to meet the output specification. And I presented in an earlier slide what those metrics are, and we have to hit the condition targets. So the method statements that you refer to were produced as part of the bid documentation to say this is indicative of the work that will be required on the assumptions that were in that bid at the time. What we didn't have is good network knowledge, and we didn't have good condition knowledge. So it's all run through a computer program that models all of the conditions, and that model is not only agreed by the council, but is also overseen by the lender's technical advisor, because they are they're obviously putting the money into this, so they need to ensure that all of that modelling is correct, and also an independent certifier that was employed to ensure that all the data that we're using is correct and the performance reporting that we put forward is correct. So the simple answer is it was our risk, and what we've done is delivered enough work to meet the requirements of the contract. But yes, there's a difference between the numbers that are in the method statement and the numbers that were actually required, and that would relate to not only carriageways but all the different services within the contract. So they were indicative.
If I may, I don't know if it was just me, but I wasn't terribly clear, with great respect. You mentioned due diligence. Well, of course you had to carry out due diligence before you signed the contract, which you did. And yet, in your method statement, what I'm trying to get is I'm confused at. In your method statement, which forms part of our contract, you said, and you put it up, which is really helpful. You said you wrote assumption. I don't see your method statement as an assumption. Your method, I would have seen your method statement as what you intend to do for us under contract for our highway network, carriageway and footways. You said we're going to do 740 kilometres in your method statement's 93%, and that's about right. And we all agree now, and you've put it up. You did a couple of 100 kilometres less. I'm still unclear why that is an achievement. Why you've met the targets? I'm confused about that. You said one thing and you've done another, but equally you're saying we've met 100%. I saw come up twice, 100%. Yet in another slide you're 70%. That's where I'm confused. If you can help me with that.
I'll try and say it as clearly as I can.
Yeah.
So the PFI contract runs on an output specification, not an input specification. So what you see in the method statement is an indicative input. These are the things that we are assuming we will have to deliver in order to meet the output specification. The output specification is a condition target, a number of condition targets. And we have met those condition targets 100%. And we had to meet those, otherwise you wouldn't have paid us. And there was an independent certifier that certified to say that those targets have been met, so as the the uplift in payments because you hold back the way it works through the core investment period. You hold money back and you don't release that until we meet the target. So my 100% is we have met 100% of those condition targets. And the method statements are definitely indicative. That's what they are, because it wouldn't be possible to say exactly how much work has got to be done with the limited data that was available at the bid stage.
I'm not going to labour it, but I will take this outside this informally, I believe, because I'm going to get into things that are best discussed privately for the information exchange. Can I just move on to a couple of things? But for me, just so that I'm very clear about my position, is I think there is happy to be advised separately. There is legal precedent on method statements in contracts, and that's a commitment, but I'm happy to be corrected on that. I don't think it's a guess, and I think due diligence would have informed you agreeing to undertake 93% assumption. Can I just move? By the way, you mentioned the independent certifier. Do we still have the independent certifier?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Currently, the independent certifier, independent checker of the CIP rectification programme is Mayor Brown.
And then finally, from me, for the moment, rectification is. I'm interested to hear about that, because at the end, and you helpfully showed us a slide that in 2021, when we had the not only the savings programme but the milestone 14, the end of the core investment period, there were a number of rectifications. You've mentioned it there. The core investment period was extended by 2 years to carry out the rectifications. How are we doing on those? Have we done all those?
So the rectification programme is virtually complete. We're probably at about 98% complete, with the more challenging locations being the only ones that are left to deliver, and those are ones that have been delivered later because of either works that were preventing us getting the road space to deliver those, or ones that are in very, very challenging traffic management situations. And Roxall is one that is just being completed now. And then there are a small handful of other schemes of that nature, but all the rest of the core investment rectification has been completed.
One final. I mean, generally, would we consider that a success or failure? 2-year extension to do the rectifications. Remember, rectifications what you did wrong in the first place. That's what rectifications are. So what you did wrong in the first place, you had to put right. We agreed that, that's fine. And we agreed 2 years. I assume you agreed. Well, I know you did agree, not you personally. Agreed it, but we haven't quite managed that. How long ago was that? 4 years? Is that 4 years? How long has the rectification period been going on?
I believe it was signed in 2021, and as Eddie said, it's 98% complete. So it has overrun, and
so it's overrun and it hasn't been complete. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, I mean, I think it's important to put it into the context of it. It's 0.5% of the network, and as my colleague Eddie referred to, some of the sites that are left are very challenging in terms of what we all experience and suffer, which is network congestion. We're talking about closing major roads, and it's when and where to do that. So I fully accept what you're saying. There was over and above what was agreed, and it's not wholly mitigated by the fact that they are in challenging locations. Some of it is down to that, but Island roads are definitely progressing much quicker now which to get those schemes done and dusted and to get that CIP rectification completed.
Thank you, thank you. I've got councillor Blake and then councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the numbers behind the 500 miles and the kilometres and the 700 kilometres because you obviously have to put in for worst case scenario, and I do actually have to point out probably to a lot of islanders that mainland roads are diabolical. Our experience of mainland roads are motorways, and that is a separate issue entirely. If you step off a motorway in places like the New Forest, for instance, just get off the ferry at Lymington, you come across diabolical roads. So I do understand that our roads are of a higher standard than others, and I can appreciate how our area scores are above the 15, as you say. But in terms of the individual roads, I'm thinking of a road in my ward, for instance, Alpine Road. Everyone will say, when's Alpine Road going to be fixed? At what point does, I think some clarity around, at what point does Alpine Road meet the 6 out of 20 or below to get done? Because quite frankly, I and other residents can't understand how that road does meet any form of satisfactory score. And it is quite a key road for Ventnor. So it's perhaps some clarity, Eddie, on how roads are scored and how bad a road has to be in order to come up on your flagged list.
Okay, if I can respond to that. So the two surveys that I showed, which is the scanner survey, which uses lasers, and then a visual survey, which is to UK pavement management system, which is a standard survey system. It looks for deterioration such as longitudinal profile, cracking, rutting, these sort of defects. The one thing that it doesn't pick up is aesthetic defects, and I know there are quite a number of roads on the island that look poor, particularly where there's been thin overlays over concrete and the thin overlays have started to strip back, and you can see roads that look particularly poor. They might have a lot of patching in them as well, but they meet the requirements for the output specification, which is it's based on safe and sustainable surfaces. We're always happy to look at individual roads because every road will have its survey. We will have detailed information on every road to say what its score is, what its score was last year, and if necessary, we can drive down into the detail of that and say, well, why isn't this one coming out at a low enough score for it to get treated? And we can look in that level of detail. So you mentioned Alpine Road. Quite happy to go and have a look at that and then feedback through committee on that one particularly.
Thank you. I appreciate Colin Rowlands has already asked our individual ward members to come up with our 5 key things, but I'm sure we'll have 5 plenty each. But so there are these roads in every single area that flag up. But I think what would be very helpful is if that data could be published publicly and with an explanatory segment into how that score is formulated, so that residents can scrutinise themselves perhaps, or at least be assured the other way. I say, because when you have say situations like Alpine Road where people do not want to drive up it and instead are using a road like Belgrave Road as a rat run, that creates other issues because, as I say, the road is in such a poor state that particularly vehicle drivers and smaller cars. They won't do it, and that's putting pressures on on the rest of our network. So I say it's quite an important issue. I'll pause at that and allow others to make some questions and points.
Mrs. Love. Thank you. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Blake. Yes, you're absolutely right. The way that that could be dealt with is through the annual programme, because obviously, although the core investment programme has finished, the surveys that are taken every year then feed into the condition index, and that's what gives the technical intervention. But we are very open to opening that up to ward members to have the more sort of human factor, and have residents come forward to you with their key roads. The way that we are going to structure the programme going forwards means there'll be ample time for you as members of the committee and ward councillors to come forward with your roads that residents are flagging as very regular issues, and to give that time for IRSL and Island Roads to work it into the annual programme so that then you can show the delivery of results. It is obviously caveated with those roads that have to be done will have to take priority, and some of those roads, although there may be a perception, we would have to say we would continue to keep them on the list and they would be on a future programme. But there is the ability to do that, and we definitely welcome members of both the committee and of the wider council to bring forward those roads so that we can start to look at that type of programme.
Councillor Jarman.
If you don't mind, I'll feed back your answer to you that you gave so that I've got it set in my mind. Because the contention has always been whether milestone 14 was met or not. But what I understand you're saying is that notwithstanding what the original estimate was of the work to be done, that by completing 71% of that work, you were able to meet the minimum specifications of the contract and therefore achieve sign-off of milestone 14. Is that correct?
Not quite. Not 71% of the total, but 71% of what was in the method statement. Right. So the method statement says, I don't know the exact percentage. It's not every road.
I understand that.
And then we've delivered 71% of that in order to meet the target.
Right. So the other 29% was not necessary to be done in order to meet milestone 14.
That's correct. That's not to say that percentage won't be completed because we have an annual programme. So we have to keep, and the primary metric that is driving the continued investment is to keep those average scores up, which is challenging. So to keep the average at 15 out of 20, we've got to make sure that we've got a range with most of the roads being well above that and a number of roads being below that, but nothing going below 6.
So I think what we often are faced with is communications. So the communication that most islanders, I believe, would have picked up is an expectation that the totality of those roads, 100% of them, would have been dealt with under the core process in the first half of the contract, effectively. During that core investment period, that 100% of those would have been done in order to have that milestone signed off. But on reflection, what we're learning, it's important that we learn as well, is that the contract was able to be fulfilled with only 71% of those roads being done because of the criteria of the contract that defined the minimum characteristics that had to be met. So that's a very different reflection. And I don't think most residents would understand the nuance of that second one. I've got it now. It wasn't even clear to me at the beginning of the meeting. Now listen very carefully, but I think I've got it. The question is how we communicate that to correct the impression of a very large number of people on the island. So I'll just leave that as an open issue. I'm not expecting an answer now, but I'm appreciative that I've got a better understanding of it. So the question I want to come on to were a couple of things. One was related to, and I'm very glad to hear, by the way, about the resolution program that's going on, because we had a footpath that was closed in my ward for 6 months, simply because of trees that were judged to be dangerous, which were on land that wasn't registered to anybody. And because nobody would get them done, the footpath stayed closed for 6 months. We very much hope that the resolution program never allows that to happen again. But on two specific topics, one is, why is it that you don't use a permeable road surface material? Because that seems to be very much the modern way, certainly in other countries and other parts of the country. I've seen it being done now. It aids the issue of runoff from the roads, and it alleviates some of the problem of extending road surfaces and losing the absorbability of the materials, particularly grass that would usually have been on each side. And secondly, I'd like a better understanding of what the issue is with ditches. This is evident now because of our increased rainfall in the winter. We have an enormous number of ditches, even around where I live. They are all congested and full up with grass and debris. Most of them look like they've not been cleared out for decades. And as a result, they fill up and they overspill and they run over the roads. Either that or the culverts under the road are insufficient to deal with the volume of water they've got. So are the maintenance of the ditches adjacent to all the roads and the culverts under them through which they drain a responsibility under the contract? And why is it that we're not using permeable membranes? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rowland.
Just the first point on communication of the contract. I think this is my 7th year, and I think it's about the 4th time that we've had the same conversation about what the contract, how it's measured, etc., etc. So in terms of communication, Councillor Jarman, we've had constant scrutiny meetings prior to the committee system where we've explained that process in a public meeting. So yeah, I think you're right. We do need to continue that communication, because it's obviously that some people haven't necessarily got that understanding of how the contract works, but it is something that we've been constantly communicating through this process.
Mr. Fellows, did you have anything to say about ditches?
Yeah, I'll try and answer each of those
Permeable,
those items just quickly. Yeah, and I agree with the communication. Communication is key for all the stakeholders, particularly the residents of the island. And I was made aware before I started the job that there was an issue around, which is why I asked, have these statistics ever been put on us? So that's why I put them on the slide tonight. It's an emotive thing, but I know it's emotive, which is why I put them on the slide to try and correct the understanding. The issue about footways being closed, yeah, never again. I'm here to try and make sure all of those things are driven out. And the slide that Michelle showed, it spoke about not only the culture but the processes, and it will be the processes, tidying up some of the processes and how we communicate with the city council's teams and getting smooth process to get things agreed, so as that doesn't happen. Permeable road surfaces, yes, they are used quite extensively, but you have to be able to capture the water. So permeable road surfaces will allow water to permeate through a number of layers, and then they will capture that water and get it into a controlled and channeled usually to the side of the road into a drainage system. What we don't want is for that water to permeate down through into the subgrade, particularly where you've got a cohesive soil, and we're on a lot of clay on the island. And if we allow the clay to get wet under the roads, we will definitely lose the condition of the roads. So permeable on the island, probably not a wise choice. Maybe on, I'm going to say dual carriageways, but I think we've only got one dual carriageway on the island. It lends itself to those more major roads where you can deal with the water and get it into a drainage system. Most of the roads on the island have not got drainage systems. They rely on drainage into ditches, which will bring me on to the issue of ditches. Now, most of the ditches on the island are responsibility of the local landowner, usually farmers, and they should have a regime of maintaining their hedges, maintaining their ditches. I am aware that there are a number of ditches, and particularly where some of those are culverted, that are under the responsibility of Island Roads through the contract. I don't know the detail of which ones there are, but it's the smaller proportion, with a majority of them being adjacent landowner responsibility.
Yeah, members, just going to intervene just 1 second. It's 7:30. We've still got another item, big item, and we've also got some decisions that we need to make on our work plan that have to be made. So just to let you know, I will be asking for an extension of the meeting if we had not wrapped up by 7:50. That's not to curtail you too much, just to be mindful that we do have work to do as well. So, and we could ask for another session with anything more of the PFI. I'm sure we can have another private session. So I just wanted to flag that up to you now, just so you're not surprised. Okay. I think we've got Councillor Best.
Thanks, Chair. Eddie, thanks for the stats. Really interesting. The average condition of the surface of the road across the Isle of Wight is deemed to be good, or very good, compared to the UK, which is excellent. So there's an assumption on my part, quite rightly or wrongly, that the amount of potholes or pothole repairs are not numerous. And I don't know if that's correct or not, but I mean, my question is, and it's going back to the pledge from central government as regards to and it's been in the newspapers, it's been in the press, etc., of their pothole repair funding being driven down to local authorities. If we're at a good standard of potholes, let's assume, and we've got a pledge of money, let's assume, are we likely to take that? And if we are likely to take that, and it's not directed at potholes, will it go to another project? And further to that, could you confirm that that's actually happened? Have we received any kind of funding from central government? I may be off piece, but so please correct me.
Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, it's separate. So that funding is separate to the PFI contract. Under normal circumstances, where an authority has a PFI contract in place, they would not be eligible for highways maintenance funding. However, it has been recognised nationally that the conditions of the road has not been as good as they would like to be, and that's including within PFI areas. However, given the statistics that have been shown by Mr. Fellows, we are in a position where we can actually utilise, we still get that money, it's still a settlement, we still get that allocation, but we can utilise it for other purposes. But there are guidance around what we can use it for. And so things like retaining structures to work at Wroxall that's forthcoming after the CRP rectification works, those are the sorts of schemes we're dealing with. And the additional drainage or maintenance schemes that are either not covered by the PFI contract because it's not 100% of the entire network of the island when it comes to the highways. It's the majority, but not everything. And secondly, there's drainage systems like those that acknowledge that could do with investment that don't fall under the control of the PFI contract that require investment and sales. Likewise, we can use it to improve cycling and walking infrastructure where there's gaps or the material finishes aren't as good as what they currently are or should be.
Thank you. Great. So in essence, we are eligible. We are going to get that money, but it doesn't have to go into pothole repairs. It can go into other projects as you've described.
Indeed. Yeah.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Stuart, me again, just to be a bit more specific on that. I believed we had a £1.4 million towards that pothole fund. I appreciate what you're saying with prioritising things and diverting the money, but what amount of that actual fund was spent on potholes?
It wasn't necessary to utilise it for potholes given the PFI contract in place. So therefore that funding has been allocated to other purposes. And we've got schemes such as Osborne Steps and Wroxall and others which have required additional funding. Leeson Road as well is another one that's required obviously funding because of the situation we find ourselves in. So that's where the money has been diverted to at this point in time. We are accountable for that, and obviously we are accountable to report back to DFT at the moment where we're using that.
We should be coming to you for Mill Street again then, Mr Chandler. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you for that. That's it's always useful to get information we didn't have before. So I really appreciate this question and the answers, and thank you very much for that. Just to confirm, it would be helpful, I think, for the committee to have a list of projects which that is aimed towards at the moment, if you have that available. Obviously, it may be that you're developing that as you speak. And if you are developing it, can I remind you that Newtown, in my ward, has got a major problem with a road which is crumbling right towards Newtown Creek, and nobody's actually taken responsibility at the moment for it. It's a sort of open wound, as it were. So you might like to consider that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A part of the discussions that's going on at the moment is to have a programme of works that we're funding, because, we've now had settlement fundings, or we've started to get clarification of settlement fundings, not just for this year, 25, 26, but 26, 27 and onwards. The government have changed their approach, and therefore we're having to develop a capital programme that we're doing. And obviously we will work that in with the programme that Island Road's doing as well. So you've got a comprehensive programme of what's going on in the network. It's always difficult, of course, to do all the works on the island roads because summer's really busy and we don't want to be hitting the heavy network, and also the picturesque and rural villages which attract tourists, certainly Newtown. But other areas, it can be difficult, but we'll programme that in, and we will be able to share that with committee. That's not a problem.
I've got a couple of questions of my own, if I may. So I'm the only one in this committee that was actually here in 2010 when we voted for this exemplar contract, and the promise of all of our roads being 93% being upgraded. So it is hard to swallow that we're not getting all of those roads upgraded. And I understand everything you said, but it is very difficult for us to then try and reframe in our minds what we were told back in 2010. And there's no way in the world that a road at the end of the core investment period, in year 7, oh, actually we don't need to do this, actually it's fine, it meets the standard, we don't need to do this. But how is that road then 7 years later, or towards the end of the contract, when we were told every road will be returned to us in the same level, the same state it should be as per the contract, how those roads are being left out are actually going to be okay at the end of the contract? They're going to have some work done on them, but are they going to have the appropriate work done, as in the re-levelling, or not the technical terms, but are they going to be rebuilt, in other words, resurfaced, or just going to be patchy approach? So we're going to get lots of patchwork roads that weren't in the core investment period, if you follow. So the ones that were missed out, so that 27% that Councillor Jarman said, those are the roads that I'm interested in, because that's how we feel we've been let down by, maybe it was just the way they told it to us. I don't know.
It comes down again to road condition and how road condition is measured. So the roads that might not necessarily have been done yet will likely reduce in road condition, and therefore interventions will be required. And that's where the annual programme comes in, because you've had the core investment period where a huge amount of money was spent on bringing the roads up to a certain standard. And then you have an ongoing maintenance period, which still involves maintenance investment for the remainder of the contract.
Be resurfacing, not just patchworking.
Yes.
Thank you. Another question. So you said in the presentation, we're here to support local economy. I recall some roadworks in the middle of Newport a few years ago that were done in the night time to save the roads having to be closed. We just heard from Councillor Baker earlier what issue it was with Newport High Street, and obviously it's my ward, so you don't have to tell me about it. All the businesses, all the residents, including Mr. Chandler here. So why wasn't night working done then to protect our local economy for Newport High Street?
The recent one that took place a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, recent one. Yeah, just because it's fresh in people's minds, isn't it? It's a good example where I know we've had another road in Newport that was done at night.
So every road resurfacing scheme has to be planned according to the circumstances that are there at the time, and there will be some where we can work extended hours. There will be some that we can work nights. We have to balance that against environmental impacts of noise, the health and safety implications of working in the dark, and also the resourcing, because when we're in the middle of a core investment period and we've got a huge amount of equipment and resurfacing crews on the island, then there's a greater possibility to be able to double shift those. Once we're into smaller volumes of work, all of the material and all of the plant and all of the labour to actually run that plant has to come over on the ferries and be brought on to do those specific schemes. And if we want to run, for example, if we wanted to run a roads of resurfacing 24 hours, you would need three crews that can do 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. And so bringing that amount of resource on is not cost effective. So we have to allow our subcontractor, Ringway Island Roads Limited, to be able to plan the best way of delivering that, balancing up all of those things. So it's yes, there's a customer care element, there's an environmental element, there's a health and safety element, and there's a cost effectiveness element, and they balance all of those.
Thank you, Mr. Firth. So, I mean, I know that the lot of machinery, we did have a lot of machinery, didn't we? At one point on the island, all this work ourselves. Sorry? Oh, it's in Surrey, is it? Okay, so but it sounds to me like we're never going to be having night working again. So in our town centres where we've got arterial roads that need to service our town centres, we're not going to be able to do light working. From what you said, it doesn't seem like it's feasible. Sorry, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. And so it's just to follow on from that. You were talking specific, but more generally on strategic routes, of course. You apply for your work permit, take a period of time, whatever that time period is. But of course, if you're working 8 till 4, the disruption on the strategic route is far greater than if you were working, say, 8 till 8 o'clock next day, perhaps, or 6 in the morning till 10 at night. A longer work period anyway. So in terms of obligation to maintain the integrity of the highway on strategic routes, do you think that approach meets your obligations actually?
Every scheme needs to be planned according to the circumstances that exist on that particular scheme. What we do is for all of those schemes that we know are going to be particularly disruptive. And we don't want to disrupt everybody. We want people to see Island Roads as a fantastic service provider who's meeting everybody's needs. It's very, very difficult to meet all of the needs all of the time, but we run a consultation, an engagement process with every one of those schemes, and we'll speak to the elected members and we'll speak to the local stakeholders, try and understand everybody's needs, and then strike a reasonable balance. I think you raise a valid point about, well, if it's an 8-hour shift, that could be earlier in the day, it could be in the middle of the day, it could be later in the day. It's unfortunate, I think, and it's a product of the island, and it's unique to the island, I think, that we tend to be pushed into the winter months for delivering a lot of this work, and we've got very little daylight hours. In a big conurbation like the West Midlands, we do the vast majority of it right in the middle of the summer. You know, during the holiday periods is when we do all the resurfacing, and we've got far more light. We've got better temperatures. We've got better weather. It's very, very challenging to deliver it on the island. But your point's well made, and I think, you know, we need to have those discussions in advance of the approval for the road space, and the approval that comes through the council for when those works can be done. Because if we can't get the approval from the council to do the works in reasonable hours, then it costs us financially, because we end up paying a penalty for non-availability of the network. So we are trying to get all of that balanced. I'm just saying it's very difficult, but we will always talk to you about it.
That's really helpful to get, because quite often you're just given a letter, or there's, you know, it's a fait accompli when it's happening, and there doesn't seem to be that two ways. I think that could be picked up better upon, and reflect on, you know, how the programmes can be delivered to actually support our local economy. I have one more question. So say I've been obviously here for a while now. There used to be a fantastic map on the website where I could go into my ward, I could see what was coming up, because it would say, it would highlight, or there'd be pavement on this road and this road, then that just all disappeared. And it was really good tool for me to explain to residents what was happening next. So that important part of communication, I think that disappeared. I think probably quite some time ago. I don't know why. Maybe it was just because things get getting cancelled, so that the map actually wasn't really that useful in the end. So that's just been a feedback there. That was actually very good, because you go on the website now and it just says roadworks. It's just actually what's happening rather than the plan stuff. I know we get our emails every week, but it's that was a really good interactive map that you could look at. One thing is good. Sorry, you must be thinking I'm just here moaning. I'm not. The Fix My Street app is works really, really well. And I do use it quite frequently. I'm always out with my cat in town, right? Fix My Street. So no, that is good. So that's it. So you don't have to respond to that, Mr. Bellows. It's just really some feedback I wants to say to
it. Let me just say, I mean, we're going into this service transformation. So all of those sort of things we will be dealing with. So we will particularly pick up on the use of mapping, and how are we communicating our annual programme? How do we manage to get our annual programme consented by the council? How do we then communicate that? We know we've got some timing issues about presentation of annual programme, and then when it gets the consent, and when we can then convert that into public information. And I think you're right. You know, all of that information needs to be timely, and it needs to be accurate, and we need everybody to have access to it. So that's something that we will definitely ensure that is in the transformation programme.
Going to ask for extension of the meeting now, it's no longer than 8:30. So I'm proposing that. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Sorry? Yeah, thank you. Right. Councillor Stewart.
Apologies. First of all, okay, so let's follow what you were saying, because you partly said what I was going to say. All of the island road staff I have come across have tried to be as helpful and positive and supportive as you could possibly imagine. I am very grateful for all of the help that they have given me. But there's a slight addition to that. We previously had a scrutiny committee system. Some of the people here were on that scrutiny committee. One of the things we produced at one stage was a list of recommendations, including things around communication with elected members and around diversionary signage. We did get a response to that. The committee looked at that again, which I think was last April, if I remember rightly, April, May. And we basically felt that we hadn't got a substantial response, a helpful response. And we felt that it would be useful if we could get a further look at that by island roads. And given that you're here at this stage, I will take the opportunity to ask you just to look at that again and see whether there is some possibilities around those possibly two key areas. Thank you.
Mr. Fellows?
Can I just say yes, absolutely. When I first came to the island, much to my wife's frustration, I spent the first 2 weeks going around speaking to, because we're trying to buy a house, so speaking to everybody, whether they're an estate agent or a shopkeeper or anything. What do you think of island roads? What do you think of the road service? And diversions, planning of traffic management were two of the big things that came up from virtually everybody that I spoke to. So yes, fully aware of it, and we will work to.
Who chose to take the job after talking to residents about.
Well, you might say I'm mad, but yeah. But look, I came into it with my eyes open. I knew it was a challenge. You're probably aware we've had some challenges in Birmingham as well. So I've worked on challenging contracts, but I'm up for it, and I'm here to be helpful to try and help you as a council to get the very, very best out of your highway service that you possibly can.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Jordan and Councillor Blake.
You wouldn't expect me to say so. Thank you, Chair. I'm encouraged by your approach, Eddie. I've seen other people in your role over years, and there's always been a defensiveness. I don't see that in you. You've tried to answer all the questions that have been posed. You know, I welcome that, and it's good to hear that that's your aspiration, and that you took the job after talking to residents about island roads. Wonderful. Good luck.
I went to get fish and chips last night from a van in Chale Green, and I even asked the chippy what he thought of island roads, and he said diversions.
He lives in St Helens and he's on the parish council. He's got a lot to say about diversion.
Extra pinch of salt with that one then, yeah. Councillor Blake.
Just to reiterate a point, I mean, we're coming into election period, so shock us politicians are doing some polling, and you'd be probably not surprised to learn that the roads are by far the most popular subject amongst voters. However, considering we are in the best for the country, you go across the water to Hampshire, and it's the of 15 service areas, it ranks in the bottom 3. So it shows it is an island specific issue that we care about our roads, and I don't quite know why, because apparently we have some of the best in the country. But you know, it is. I don't envy your position in terms of trying to deal with that. But I'd like to thank you for coming tonight, and we look forward to tomorrow's event and future workings.
Thank you, members. So this was just for noting this update. I think we would like to have a private briefing, say in a couple of months' time. We'll see how things are bedding in. When do you want this briefing? What do you think? Any more? Should we just do that by email? Any updates you'd want? Sorry?
End of February will be fine.
February will be fine.
or first week of March, not later.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll organise that. Thank you. So just want to say thank you very much, Mr. Fellows, for coming and being such a good sport. Please don't take any of it personally, just that we care very much about our roads and our PFI contract, especially when we're promised so much. But sounds like we're moving forward, and I'm sure you've learnt a lot this evening from members, and encourage all members for this committee and our colleagues to be sending any experiences or any individual cases, ward cases, straight to Mr. Rowland or Mrs. Love. Thank you. So we're going to move on now to our next favourite subject, which is the Clowes Floating Bridge. So I believe we've got an update. You can stay for this if you want, Mr. Fellows. It's a boat, not a bridge, though. So there we go, Mrs. Love. So this is an update as promised.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, committee. So we brought a report to the committee on the 16th of October. The report was the findings of the refresh of the outline business case. It had a recommendation. Just to remind the committee that obviously the committee had concerns about that recommendation and in the end put forward their own recommendation, and that was so to prevent the council from becoming in a position where it was a system design authority, and to ensure that the lessons from Floating Bridge 6 were learnt, officers were instructed to procure a qualified company to articulate a high-level requirement specification and invite companies to procure solutions. And the committee gave recommendations, and they were minimum of 5 crossings an hour, a replacement vessel at the location of the existing service to transport pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles between Cowes and East Cowes, a focus on the sustainability, and to ensure that the solutions were not predefined. So basically to consider all options: design, build, own, operate, license to operate, etc. And the committee asked for a working party open to committee members, officers and qualified stakeholders to act as a project board. So that was what we were asked to do. And obviously we have done as much as we can of that in the time frame so far since the 16th of October. So the update is that we have convened the working group, and I think key members of this committee, as well as local councillors from both the town councils, are also on that committee, and Captain John Kidd as the Harbour Master representative, alongside myself, Colin, Steve Sandcock as the officers, and Mark Downer as the operational manager. We put an advert out for 2 voluntary independent experts. That was answered, and we now have 2 very qualified gentlemen, marine architects, who have joined us on the working party. One of them joined us yesterday, and the other one has been in contact. I believe, Councillor Stewart, you've spoken to both of them as chair of the working group. The specification and tender advert agreed by the working group for the advisor that they asked for has gone out, and that has closed. There were 3 bids. That has been subject to moderation, and a preferred supplier has been chosen, but that is still subject to contract. And following the working group yesterday, some of the information that can be shared was sent round for the independent experts to review. So that is all in progress. And as we discussed with Crown Commercial Services and the town councils, and as was part of the working group specification, the preliminary market engagement exercise, so basically, as you described it earlier, Julie, putting everything into the top of the funnel as the start of the exercise and funneling it down to what is the art of the possible, will take place, will commence in February. So that's where we're at the moment, and we have met the objectives that the committee asked us to meet in the first instance, and obviously we'll continue to work with members, town council members and the independent experts, as well as the technical advisors, to bring forward this specification and requirements. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Love. Councillor Stewart, as you volunteered you were so kind in volunteering to chair the working group. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Let's be honest, that was a typical volunteering we do in the army, which is all volunteers take one step back and everybody else took one step. Everybody. Basically, I got stuff. Thank you very much. So, I can't even get right words out now.
I'm very grateful anyway.
No, I want to say I'm very grateful for all of the people who've come forward to join in that working group. Among them, people here. I'm also grateful for the people outside, other councillors and the officers. I know they've sometimes been a little bit more reticent than I could hope for, but they've been extremely clear about what they want and how they can get that process going. And I've spoken to both of the independent experts who clearly have spent a lot of time already. I've also spoken, just so that people don't feel that I'm not engaging, I've spoken to local people who also have enormous amount of experience, and some of the people who've already been involved in the process. I would hope that we will be able to go out in February as expected. It certainly looks like it's being pushed through really quickly, for which I'm very grateful.
I think that was my question. We're on target, are we, with all our timescales? That's really good. We thank everyone involved in making that happen, because it doesn't happen without a lot of energy and focus.
Thank you to all the members and your attendance at the working group and all of the opinions and views that you've put forward, because they've helped shape what we're doing. But yes, the Gantt chart of the project plan was circulated as part of the working group documents, and we are on schedule.
Any other questions from members or comments? No? Great, thank you. It's great to know that we're making progress on that, and we look forward to seeing what the market has to offer. That's going to be an interesting bit, isn't it? Go. Right, we're going to move on now. If there's no more questions, we are going to move on to the committee work plan. So that's just the one sheet here. Now, there's a couple of things we need to do here. We need to add on two things, and there's also two things I need to talk about as well. So there's a TRO for Forest Hills that needs to be added on in March. Did you want? Is that just a basic? Nothing to see here, just a basic. Yes.
We would intend to give a briefing to the committee before that comes to the committee.
Okay, all right. And we've got another TRO for Union Street in Newport. I just wanted to, that's in my ward, so maybe just declare an interest, but just to let you know, this has come from residents living in Union Street, who are, it's trying to ameliorate an issue there. We don't have many tools to use to be able to deal with this situation. This is one that we believe may do the best. So I'll do personally, I will go and check with the residents that they are still happy with that. Just to double check on that, because that has been rumbling on for about 6 years, this issue. So okay, there's two TROs, Forest Hills and Union Street in March. And I've got here a briefing. We've got a briefing over the Iron Transport Infrastructure Forum. It's a verbal update in March. Are we having a private? Is that a private update?
Well, the hope is to have a quick briefing in advance, an informal briefing, but obviously actually to bring
and
it
then come to that. That's great, brilliant. That'll be in March as well. So just going back to the programme as printed, we've got DBID programme and outline. Again, I guess I must give you a declaration of interest. I'm a director of Visit Isle of Wight, a non-pecuniary interest. I'm there to represent the Isle of Wight Council, but nonetheless, I have to be a director. Due to some changes at Visit Isle of Wight, that is going to have to slip till June. That's basically when we'll make the decision, various decisions. One is we're going to run the ballot for Visit Isle of Wight. Is the business case up to scratch? It's a very legal process we have to go through. We're not being overtly sort of judge and jury over it. So basically, have they hit these milestones? Just one more thing, sorry. And also, are we going to be using our votes to support the bid? Mr. Rowland.
It's just that we're going to do a briefing on the DBID as well for the committee, so the committee can get a full understanding and be on the same page as where it is.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a slip to June. The other thing is where's my bit of paper? So on when we're talking about the DBID, tourism levy, so that is out for national consultation at the moment. As we know, the destination bid we have on the Isle of Wight was going out again. The plan is going out again in probably September time to go for the third 5-year series of the DBID, so the levy that we have to pay, tourism business have to pay. There is, of course, if it fails, if the vote fails, then there's nothing that Isle of Wight Council won't be coming to put that money in. It's over £500,000 plus they bring other funding as well. So just have that in your mind. That's just sort of, no, always says there is no plan B. But nationally, the tourism levy is out for consultation right now, and that is basically for local authorities to be able to raise a levy, which will then be used specifically to support the tourist economy. So it could be improving beaches, pavements, could be whatever it is, infrastructure. But we need to put a response back to that. I believe it's the 18th of February. So I was going to suggest members that we have a gathering where we can go through the consultation and put a response in from the committee. Would everyone be up for that? So we'll get that in our diaries then. Is that okay, Mr. Rowland? Yes, Councillor Beston.
Thanks. So the DBID process is a statutory process, as I understand, Jeff. Great. So that ends in October, the latest, this DBID. Are we still on target to have those votes in October?
If we carry on with momentum, then yes. Yeah. But we have lost some time. I think originally they were hoping to, I think we would have had our vote here at the committee already. Then we're going to do it December, I think, weren't we originally? I think they were hoping to have an earlier ballot. But yeah, we will be, as long as we keep things ticking along. So we'll do that. The other thing was if you remember, we had our list of our priorities as a committee when we first sat together back in those heady days when it was warm, when it was June, it was lovely. And one of the top priorities for this committee was the Pyle Street site, just over there, which we all know what site we're talking about, that lovely eyesore right on the Cobbins Bridge, as potential for student accommodation. Now we've been working on that through Regen for the past 2.5 years. It was summer of 2003 we started working on that. So it would be really nice if we could have a proper update on that, where we are, because this is a really important intervention, having student accommodation. Student accommodation also could be key worker as well, the way that they can design these buildings now. So, we always talk about trying to help our young people and regenerate at the same time. Now, if we don't have accommodation where people can come, I mean, we've got Platform One of the best music colleges in the country. You can go up to a master's degree there. I mean, this is where Wet Leg studied. People come over and want to study at Platform One. They go, first of all, well, where's your accommodation? Well, we don't have any, maybe rent a house somewhere, which of course we need accommodation for other families as well. And there's no campus, because they're up on industrial estate. Well, Newport essentially with some student accommodation, we have been working with many partners, education partners and key worker partners as well. It would be the town would become the campus. It's well known that students bring life to areas where they live. So it's really, really important for our regeneration. And I know that obviously our situation is not great, our financial situation, but it's no reason why we still can't have ambition and we still can't strive to do the best for our island and to address the gap we've got with our young people leaving. So that's just a plea to you. I don't know how you want to deal with that, Mr. Rowland, because it's on your.
I think, Chair, it's a property matter, and therefore it needs to be discussed in that way. I think through you, Chair, if you can make a request to property colleagues to come and do a briefing with the committee. And then we can then determine what the next set of actions are following properties briefing and the questions as a result of that. Because you are aware that they've produced a paper that they've shared with the committee in terms of what their position is. So it's just a case of the fact that if we want to have a discussion about that, and then we can determine, you can determine as a committee how you want to take it forward. Probably likely it's going to have to go to PFR committee because it's going to involve an additional amount of money to do the next steps in terms of a feasibility study, further feasibility study, because we don't have that budget within the regeneration team. We don't have that budget within the directorate. So
we
would
were
have
looking
to
for that
go.
money. We looked at that money since September, haven't we? So that
Yeah.
was that's the
Yeah,
problem. That's
it
the issue.
requires additional 25,000, isn't it?
Yeah, I do understand that. But I think there seems to be a slightly disconnect. So it'd be really good to have property colleagues working with us, because there was that report that we got given. There were several maybe misconceptions in that report that they may have given a slightly different response than if the full facts had been known. So is everyone content that we have a briefing and we try and move that project forward in whatever way we can, if it's still a priority for us? Yep, ascending, yes, nodding, very good. Okay, great. Well, we have members' questions, but I haven't had any questions come in from any members. And as you know, it's not a free for all at this point. You have to put a written question in. So at 8:10, well done, thank you. I'll close the meeting.